This story tells of a world that has undergone incredible changes and turned into something very scary and incomprehensible. Our main character has a wonderful and beautiful daughter. Everything would be perfect if she hadn't decided to side with the darkness and destroy everything around her. Her father, Seojin Lee, cannot understand why she did this, although it seemed to him that he raised her with completely different principles. Sora no longer respects her father. She considers him too weak and no longer wants to play the daughter-father game. He probably came here to destroy her and justify his title as a hunter, or perhaps just to understand her motive. At this moment, he was called by an experienced hunter named Kam-san, who reminded Lee that she was no longer a little girl, but a real monster. Lee completely disagrees with these words. For him, she will always remain his beloved daughter no matter what. Sun said that he did not want to encourage anyone to kill, so he allowed his soldiers to turn back and was left alone with Lee. The situation quickly began to spiral out of control. Lee pulled out a gun and said he would fight for his daughter. He doesn't care that she's turned into a real devil, so he'll have to do everything he can to stop her. He understands that he has failed as a father and is absolutely unnecessary for Sora, just like for Sun. He is ready to die here and now just because he feels he is fighting for the right values. He cannot watch his own daughter be murdered, and so he decides to risk his life no matter what. The result was natural. After just a few seconds of fierce battle, Lee fell to the ground and lost consciousness. His daughter couldn't move for a long time. It seemed as if she was hypnotized and didn't understand what was happening. Sora hated her father, but now her attitude towards him has changed and she has decided to act very decisively. Thus, the final boss began the last quest on planet Earth, although at that moment no one understood anything yet. The dying Lee was sad and dreamed of another chance to change everything that had happened and start his journey over. He didn't even suspect that he would soon get this opportunity, because the unique quest of the hunter Lee has begun. He must change the future. Before the regression, he saw everything that happened to him in the past. All these emotional moments were as clear as the palm of his hand. All those moments when he treated his daughter badly, and in the difficult moments of losing his beloved wife. He saw his daughter grow up to hate him, and began to wonder what had caused this terrible future. After that, darkness fell, and soon he opened his eyes and realized that he was in his room. Lee couldn't understand anything. He remembers perfectly how he died yesterday on the top of the mountain, but now he's still alive. He immediately took his phone out of his pocket and realized that he was in the past, because today is May 21st, 2025. He looked in the mirror and couldn't believe his eyes. So it was really true. He wasn't sleeping and his regression had begun. So far, the guy doesn't understand how he was able to return to the past and why he got this chance to change everything that happened. At that moment, the door to his room opened and he saw his beloved wife, whom he had not seen for many years. Next to her stood the still very young and small Sora, the girl who would make this world suffer many years later. The system immediately informed the hunter that a unique quest to change the future had begun. He must change 5 of Sora's accidents. He remembers this situation perfectly in the past, when the conversation was not very pleasant and ended in a scandal. His wife tried to assure him that it was his daughter, but the Sojin refused to believe it. He said he didn't even want to look at this little creature until he saw proof of paternity. It was at this moment that he first broke his daughter's little heart, but in the future he would repeat past mistakes more than once. Now he understands how stupid he was in his youth, and now he has no right to do everything the same. He must stop Sora's 5 accidents and prevent this child from growing into a cruel monster who will destroy the entire world. The problem is that he doesn't know of any accidents that have happened to this girl, but he'll have to be very careful if he wants to change everything. Only now did he begin to understand that they had no good memories at all from the moment they met. Not only did Lee not recognize her as his child, but he also failed Kira, who loved this child until her death. After all this, he was forced to take care of Sora on his own, but he was too busy feeling guilty and regretful. When Kira died, he tried to work all the time and try to pay off the family's debts. So Sora grew up alone, with no one to take care of her. It's probably now becoming obvious that the reason this little lady became a witch was her father. Sora couldn't even call him his father. He was so stupid and unaware. This time he is ready to change, and from the very beginning admit that Sora is his daughter despite the lack of evidence. After that, he invited Kira and his daughter to his home, because he understood that they were very tired after the long journey. He must become a real father to this little princess. Otherwise, his quest will be failed and the regression will make no sense. The first step has been taken, let's be honest. Lee has every chance to become a great father and change the future. From the very beginning, Kira realized that this guy had changed. He used to live like a pig, and today, in a few hours, he cleaned the entire house. He is even ready to play with his daughter, even though this is only their first meeting. Lee decided to talk and find out why Kira only came today. She could have done it much earlier. The reason is that they parted on a bad note, and this woman only found out about her pregnancy when Lee was called up for the army. At first, she was confident that she could raise the child alone, but then she realized how difficult it was and decided to seek help. There was an accident. Their house burned down and now they have nowhere to stay for the night. Kira doesn't ask Lee to take all the responsibility. She understands that she gave birth to the child of her own free will. She just wants the opportunity to live with Lee for a long time because she can't bear to spend the night with a small child on the street. The judge agreed very quickly. He did it even faster than the skin had time to finish. His house is not very big, but if you remove the unnecessary trash, there will be room for another family. It must be admitted that this guy is really changing quickly. He used to be immature and problematic, but now he has completely changed. After that, he even smiled and decided to propose to Kira in order to form a full-fledged family. To put it mildly, Kira was not entirely happy with this proposal. She couldn't believe that people could change so much in such a short period of time. Lee believed that Sora was his daughter, and at the first opportunity he let her into his home. And now, he is also proposing marriage. He does this because he understands that if he doesn't do it now, he will regret it for the rest of his life. Today is the day when he must take responsibility for everything he did in his past life. His heart burns with the desire to make things right. After Kira died, it became clear how important a person she was to him, and after that, his heart became dark and empty forever. Kira replied that it was too early to talk about it. She came here not because she had problems, but because she loved him. She is grateful for the opportunity to live in this house with her daughter. But it's better not to talk about the wedding yet. And the answer was obvious. Lee didn't even expect anything else. He would have to put in much more effort to win this woman. Now he needs a plan because he needs a huge amount of money to raise Sora. And he also needs to remember to eat something and feed Kira. Kira said that she wanted to join one of the guilds to earn money. Only now Lee remembered that this was one of the reasons for Sora's misfortunes. Kira wants to become a hunter and therefore asks the guy to take care of her daughter. This is very interesting because in the past life, everything was completely different. This regression becomes more interesting with each passing minute. Let's go back 25 years. These events take place 10 years before the current moment. In one moment, the world changed radically for everyone on Earth because an incredibly terrible catastrophe occurred that no one could have predicted. Demons and monsters that emerged from portals into dungeons wanted to bring this world to total destruction, to give humanity no chance. It seemed that nothing could be changed. All that was needed was to accept one's death, calmly and with dignity. But it turned out that it was still too early to think about the end of the world, because even in the most difficult times, one can always find hope for salvation. There were people who were able to use the mana that entered this world from the spatial portal in the dungeon. These people transformed this mana into power. It was these brave warriors who were able to use this power to defeat the incredible monsters of the dungeon, and therefore they began to be called hunters. The very morning the weather was wonderful outside, Kira woke up and set off on important business. She was looking for the main guild building to try to do what she had been thinking about for the past few weeks. She previously received a contract from one of the central guilds, but has not yet signed it. There are many benefits and cash bonuses in this contract, so she is incredibly interested in these opportunities. Lee said that hunter contracts are imperfect, with many pitfalls, so guilds are luring young hunters into a trap. They make a lot of money from this and that's why they do such things. So Lee advises Kira not to take any risks. It's not that simple. If she doesn't sign the contract, she won't be able to pay off her debts and become the master of her own life. He assured her that he was ready to teach her how to hunt monsters on his own, so she could contact him at any time. Now it's obvious that this guy has changed. He's not the same guy she met many years ago. When Kira and Lee broke up, he reminded her of a small child with whom it was impossible to agree on anything. Now he can put Sora to bed on his own. It seems like his parental instinct has awakened. Surely any boy's life changes after he becomes a father, and that's exactly what happened to Lee. Not only did Kira set off on errands early in the morning, Lee also woke up and took his daughter for a walk. They decided to try delicious ice cream at a shop near their house. Although Lee spent time with his daughter, he is still thinking about Kira and the guild that offered her the contract. He is familiar with this guild and its methods. They encourage hunters with various bonuses and then trap them. It becomes impossible to get out of this guild. It was this scheme in a past life that led him to huge debts. Because of this, he had to spend many years on the battlefield, and Kira was in about the same position. She was under the influence and pressure of the guild her entire life and met death before she could reach her full potential. Her death was a heavy blow for his daughter. perhaps one of Sora's 5 misfortunes. Now we need to try to think positively and change our lives for the better. And Lee has been doing this well from the very beginning. His daughter looks happy. In the past, she was hard to spot with a big smile on her face. Sora has also improved her bond with her father. She offers him ice cream and wants him to taste the delicacy as well. The girl had never called him father until today, probably because he was home too little and almost never spoke to her. Lee didn't create their memories together. He left her alone even when she needed him the most. The first and last time she called him father was when she begged him to save her. These are terrible memories that make his heart bleed, but fortunately they are behind him. Only today did he find out that Sora likes ice cream, which probably perfectly illustrates how bad a father he is. In such situations, he is made to understand how little time they spent together in their past lives. He wants not only to complete his quest, but also to create as many happy memories as possible with his daughter. They have everything they need to live a happy life and change the future, although that doesn't mean everything will be perfect. Suddenly, everyone around heard a very loud sound, and the experienced hunter immediately realized that a rift had appeared somewhere nearby. This is usually warned about in advance using the latest atmospheric scanning technologies. Hunters arrive in this zone much earlier than monsters appear in our world, but this rift happened unexpectedly. The probability of such a crack appearing in space is very small. It didn't happen in his past life, so he had to act very quickly. At this point, Lee began to think about the legendary butterfly effect, where the movement of a butterfly's wings can cause a storm in another part of the world. Kira, who had never trusted her daughter with other people, left her with her father, and because of that, everything around her began to change. This happened because of his interference in the timeline. Now the change cannot be avoided. All that remains is to adapt to all this. He tried to take his daughter and escape to a safe place, but it turned out that he had come to a rift. From the gorge into the other world appeared the Cretton bull, a huge titan monster that is difficult to stop. If this monster had come across Lee's path in a past life, it would have destroyed him in a matter of minutes. But now, he is an ordinary person. The only thing he is capable of is escaping from the monster, and even that does not guarantee success in saving his child. He realized that he would have to be separated from his daughter for a while, and asked her to hide in a safe place and not come out until he gave her permission. Very quickly, the boy began to realize that this monster was only targeting him and didn't care about other people around him. Now he doesn't have any weapons to protect himself except for the various junk around him. He remembered how Harry Potter could fly on a broomstick and tried to replicate something similar in his situation. The result was not so successful, but if Lee is still alive, then everything is going according to plan. He was able to survive because he surrounded his body with mana, although there is a limit to everything, and he will not always be lucky. There is no way to escape now, and after the siren stops, you will have to wait for experienced hunters for 5 minutes. These 5 minutes will stretch out in time and seem like an eternity. But if he survives during that time, Sora will be saved. He has every chance to say goodbye to his life, but he must endure, even if he has to spend every last drop of mana. At the beginning of his journey, in a past life, he was too weak to become a full-fledged hunter. Because of this, other fighters left him far behind, and his insecurity grew with each passing day. During these difficult days, he tried to find a way to survive and studied absolutely all the books about monsters. Now Lee knows that the Cretton bull's weak point is its eyes, so he must strike at that area at all costs. He will no longer allow Sora to live a bad life. He must change everything. He has no other choice. With such a weak body, it was impossible to gather enough mana, but his blow still proved powerful and very accurate. Because of the huge bull, everything around began to collapse. He had never met such a devil in his past life. Only a little later did Lee see that Sora was in mortal danger. The house she was standing next to was about to collapse. The little girl began to panic. It seemed to her that nothing could save her, but the father managed to protect his daughter with his body. He appeared before her as a real superhero she had read about in comics, a situation that would forever be etched in her memory. In order to save his daughter, and before that to destroy the Cretton bull, he had to spend too much mana, so Lee was left completely without energy. He understands that he must get up and save his comatose daughter, take her to a safe place, but his body refuses to listen to him. Soon, people in interesting costumes appeared in the problem area. They began to rescue ordinary people and took control of the situation. Lee knows that these people can be trusted. He saw the mark on their suits and realized that they were experienced hunters. When he opened his eyes and regained consciousness, he realized that he was in the city's central hospital. As soon as Kira heard about what had happened, she immediately left work and went to the hospital. She was terribly worried about her daughter and Lee, and was incredibly happy to see that everyone was alive and well. Sora said that her father saved her life, and at that moment Kira had no chance not to cry. A little later, they calmly went outside to drink coffee. Sora fell asleep and they had some time to be alone. Kira thanked him for saving her daughter. Lee said that in fact everything was under control and nothing terrible happened. Although of course he noticed that something strange happened when he was fighting the bull. Someone seemed to use ice magic, and he is sure it was Sora. He told Kira about all this, and saw that the girl was incredibly scared, as if she had been afraid of this conversation her whole life. A little later, Kira said that this couldn't be happening. Sora couldn't even pronounce the word magic, so there couldn't have been any witchcraft on her part. Very quickly, Lee realized that Kira was not telling him something. He said that he could be trusted and there was no point in hiding the truth. After that, it became obvious that Kira now trusts him and is not going to keep the secret. They've been building a relationship with each other lately, so now is the perfect time to take a step forward. Kira admitted that her daughter had indeed learned to use magic, and everything that happened with the bull now made sense. The moment of a difficult conversation came. It turned out that when Kira lost her house, it all happened because of her daughter. Sora completely lost control of her power and destroyed their house. There's nothing to worry about right now, but if others find out about this, their daughter could be taken to a lab for testing. Lee promised that he would replace his daughter at any cost, and Kira could not worry about their future. He never wondered if she was really his daughter. He was sure that she was, and even if it wasn't true, he wasn't going to judge anyone. He trusts Cyrus despite the lack of facts. It's a blind faith he chose, and he will never regret it. In a past life, he would never have said something like that, but instead would have refused any connection with Sora. Now everything has changed, and this has led to Kira treating him completely differently. In her eyes, he had changed. Probably the responsibility had made him a real man. After that, they decided to talk about the guild. Kira learned that there were indeed many slippery points in the contract that could lead to future problems. The girl said that she was not going to willingly fall into the trap, refused the offer, and walked away. Although she looked confident, now no guild wants to make her an offer, and she has no idea what to do next. Lee said he would personally teach her the skills of a hunter, and would also tell her about his hidden techniques. Soon he finished his treatment and together with Kira and Sora, went to an interesting place. This is where his workshop is located. He wants his family to see this place because it's important to him. Usually workshops are located in shopping malls or guild buildings, but the prices are high there, so his workshop is located in a regular house. Inside you can find a large number of different weapons, all around of the highest quality and also at affordable prices. They were met by an adult man who, despite his advanced age, remains in excellent physical shape. While Lee was in the hospital, he had enough time to deal with his memories before he was sent back in time. It was at this moment that he remembered this man, the blacksmith, who in a past life had been called the Lord of Iron. His name is Khan. He is a rather strict man, but he is truly a master of his craft, a true professional. All the members bowed to the master and said they wanted to become hunters. In response, Kang immediately started laughing out loud. He realized that these people knew how to properly greet new acquaintances. After that, Kira and Lee began to choose their weapons. To achieve success in hunting, you need to choose a weapon that will always come to the rescue in difficult times. Lee is sure that a bow would be perfect for Kira. She knows how to concentrate and stay calm in critical situations, so she is the perfect archer. She was offered to take a couple of test shots, but the girl refused and said that she trusted Lee's choice because he knew what he was talking about. When they saw the price for all these weapons, they almost fainted from shock. It's all too expensive, but Lee assured me he could pay because he had money he had been saving for something special. He had already promised Kira to help her become stronger, so now there was no turning back. Sora watched their conversation and decided to intervene to help her parents. She said she was ready to give up eating ice cream so her parents could afford to buy the necessary weapons. Looking at this girl, without noticing some nuances, it seems that she is an ordinary, kind, and attentive child. Only her mother sees how mature this child is for her age. Probably all this happened because they always lived quite poorly. Kira really wants her daughter to have everything, and she didn't deny herself anything. It was for her sake that she decided to become a hunter. It is a risky and dangerous profession, but a profession that pays quite well. Kang really liked this family, especially their beautiful daughter, so he decided to give a discount to new customers. They will only pay for the materials for the weapon. The work of the craftsman himself will be free. Thus, the satisfied family left the store with new weapons. Now they can move forward according to plan. Lee suggested that Kerr train together and then go into the dungeons and act as a real team. Soon, they went to the training ground to improve their abilities. Kira watched all the Lord of the Rings movies. She took an example from Legolas, and now she almost always shoots accurately on target. Her progress is really very fast. Sometimes she even manages to destroy trees with her arrows. Lee and Sora watch her training with pleasure. It seems as if the whole family lives with one goal. They were at the store and brought food for their mother. After a hard workout, you need to be able to eat well and rest. This is an ideal place for training. There is almost no one around, because it is a space hidden deep in the mountains. He trained here before returning to the past, and now, in just a few weeks, he has taught the mother of his child all the basics of martial arts. They were able to practice before heading into the dungeon, so now they are much better prepared for the new challenges. By the way, he is very surprised that Kira was able to pierce through a tree with ordinary arrows. It seems like she was born with a bow in her hands. In the past, due to guild rules, Kira was forced to fight with a sword, but had no talent in using this weapon. She constantly broke her sword in the middle of battle and failed until she tried using a bow and showed her talents. They talked about using mana. Sora listened carefully to her parents and said that she also knew how to use it and could teach her mother. She kept repeating the word mana. Kira hardly guessed that her daughter could become a creature in the future that would destroy the entire world. Soon, Sora demonstrated her talents. Her father noted her talent, but asked her to be more careful with her powers. The main thing is to be able to disperse your mana level and not concentrate too much of this energy in your hands. For her own safety, she must be constantly monitored, and someone must be found to look after Sora while her parents are in the dungeon. Lee assured that he has someone who will perfectly handle this role, so Kira need not worry. No matter how much he tried to use knowledge from the past, not everything turned out as well as he would have liked. He came to his father to ask for help, although this man is not inclined to help his son. I had to tell him about Kira and their love, which led to the birth of this beautiful girl. Lee also said that he proposed to Kira. They began planning the wedding, but Kira refused. He would have to tell his father all the details of this matter later, but in any case, Sora was his granddaughter. This man's name is Jae Hwan, and he won't be able to resist that cute face and big eyes. When he heard Sora call him Grandpa, he immediately melted like ice in the sun. Very quickly, they agreed to cooperate, and Lee returned to Kir. Now they can calmly go about their business. The dungeon is already waiting for them, but first they need to pick up the bracelets they ordered a week ago. This bracelet contains the stone that Sora found, also called the Light of Mana. While at the workshop, Sora looked at different weapons and tried to choose one she liked. Can promised to give her one item of her choice, and that's why she chose a blue stone. It seemed like there was only trash around, but then it turned out that she found something very valuable. The Mana Light is a stone that begins to glow when it senses mana near it. It is used to search for artifacts, and it is a rather expensive item. The daughter gave this stone to her father. She saw that he was interested and decided to thank him for saving her during the rift. Now this stone has been added to a bracelet and Lee will carry it with her, hoping to experience all the beneficial properties of this stone. While talking, Lee and Kira saw a large crowd of people near them. They all look excited because they are watching a real star. This glamorous guy's name is Sehun. This is a fairly famous hunter and TV star. Many people know about him because he is a high-class hunter. He became famous by starting to advertise his guild on television. Some are even sure that in reality, Sehun is not a talented hunter at all, but became famous only through his appearance. Lee doesn't want to see this hunter again, because Suho is the master of the Knights Guild, which was engaged in collecting a debt from Cyrus. They bought everything they needed and were about to leave, but at that moment the dungeon began to collapse, right in the shopping center. It seemed like an earthquake, but the people around were already used to the fact that after such sounds, terrible creatures crawl out of the abyss. It has become very dangerous in the middle of the shopping mall, and with the help of his experience, Lee understands that this is just the beginning, so they can't lose concentration. Only he ended up in the past, so it's obvious that Kira doesn't understand anything. It's all her first time. A dungeon has been created and a special quest has been launched, so the adventure they have been waiting for so long is about to begin. Both hunters must be prepared to fight incredibly cruel monsters, otherwise they will not survive in this hellish world. Their task is quite simple. They need to clear the dungeon, that is, clear the destroyed shopping center. People around started to panic. The door was locked, and no one could get out. A huge number of monsters have appeared around, and Kira doesn't quite understand how to clear this dungeon. Lee decided not to explain anything to her and immediately jumped forward towards the danger. He saw that one boy was about to be eaten by these stinking spiders, so he had to intervene and save the poor jewelry seller. Lee is sure that by uniting with the hunters, it will be much easier to destroy all these monsters, so he asked Kira to come down to him. Now they must try to save as many people as possible until other hunters arrive. The monsters in the shopping mall were of different sizes. Sometimes you could find a spider bigger than a bear. It soon turned out that the legendary Darren was located in this shopping center. This girl is a hunter who fought monsters until the very end of the world, but she shouldn't be here now. Lee was trying to understand why she was here and completely forgot that Kira was nearby watching him. Then, he returned to reality and asked the people around him not to panic and to concentrate on survival. After these words, a real party began. Professional hunters destroyed the monsters one by one. A huge amount of blood from these filthy creatures could be seen all around, and the hunters demonstrated why they are considered humanity's last hope. Within a few hours, the shopping mall was completely cleared, people were rescued, and the last monster was killed. For her first battle, Kira showed great potential and did a good job with her task. Sehun had heard about this girl before. She was talked about in the guild, because they considered her one of the most promising young warriors in the city. The Knights Guild was confident that Kira would sign the contract, but then everyone was upset when she refused to cooperate. Now Sehun came up and thanked her for her help. He admitted that she fought like a true master of her craft. He was surprised when, instead of Cyrus's hand, he shook Lee's hand as if he were her husband. Soon they heard a woman's screams, and it turned out that a little boy had been badly bitten by spiders. If he is helped quickly, he will be able to survive. But the exit will only open after the dungeon is completely cleared. To do this, you will need to destroy the boss, but as it turns out, Sehun is against this idea. After 24 hours, the exit will open automatically. So with such a small number of hunters, hunting the boss is too risky. He doesn't want to go into a dungeon he knows nothing about and risk his own life and reputation. That's why Sehun decided to stay with his guard, and greatly angered the other hunters who wanted to fight. He doesn't care about a child dying. He only goes into battle when there is a way to retreat. It turns out that there is a chance to save the little boy because there is a hunter who is willing to risk his own life. Darren decided to agree to go with Lee and Kira into the dungeon and try to destroy the boss. In the past, when this dungeon opened, it was this girl who, together with Sehun, cleared this hellish place before the gates opened. A conflict arose between her and Sehun. He believes that she acts too foolishly and takes risks when it is not necessary. The girl replied that for the sake of a small child, she was ready to risk anything, because that was how she was raised. The decision was made very quickly and they prepared to go into the dungeon to meet the boss. You can see a lot of luminescent moss around. It grows in the darkest places of the dungeon. All members of this expedition found a common language very quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if they soon become true friends. Darren said that a captain should be chosen before the battle begins, so that he would take on all leadership responsibilities and offered herself for this role. Kira said she was also ready to become captain, so they very quickly decided to make Lee their leader, so as not to offend anyone. He is not only a smart guy, but also has leadership qualities and strategic thinking. In fact, Lee understands perfectly well that he is dealing with a very cunning woman. She is doing everything to fully appreciate his abilities, so it is better not to stand out. He decided to agree to become captain, but to proceed with caution, as it could cause problems in the future. He wants to pretend he's an amateur and not draw too much attention to himself. As they approach the center of the dungeon, everyone around them tensed up, because instead of a boss, they saw something large and slippery. Normally, a slug can't be a boss because even a novice can defeat it. But this dungeon can be considered an exception to the rule. You have to go down very carefully because slugs feel vibrations from the ground. Darren decided to go first and immediately jumped towards the dangers. Kira decided to carefully descend on the rope, but lost her balance and fell to the ground. It seemed that this would not cause any problems because this slug is too slow, like a turtle. This was the first mistake in the dungeon of the destroyed shopping mall. This mistake could cost someone their life. Less than 5 seconds passed before this huge monster approached the location of the vibration. Only at the last moment was Lee able to grab Kira and push her away from the monster's attack. It seemed like defeating the slug would be too easy, but when you see it with your own eyes, you realize that it's no ordinary snail at all. To defeat him, it's not enough to just sprinkle salt on him, you need to come up with something much more interesting and meaningful. The slug is completely blind. Its main power is the feeling of ground vibrations, so you have to fight it wisely. They were very lucky that their captain was an experienced hunter, Lee, who decided to immediately make a plan before descending into the dungeon. The guy said that fire is the slug's weak point, and if you break the shell, even for a short time, you can easily attack. Kira will stay behind, and in case of danger, she will protect her comrades and set the monster on fire. The problem is that the boss continued to attack constantly, and there was no way to follow the plan, so you need to distract him. Darren is the only one on the team who can create an earthquake using mana, so she is ready to take on the distraction mission. This girl is really very talented. If we talk about endurance, she is one of the best in the country. Sometimes she fights too lightly, but with the help of her talent, she avoids too dangerous situations. She prepared to use the fatal break technique, a skill that would make her famous in the future. To use this blow, you need a sword, which is Darren's main weapon. Lee remembers perfectly how in his past life, he observed this technique more than once. She could destroy anyone with this blow. Now, in that timeline, her swordsmanship skills are still not perfectly balanced, so she needs to continue training. Her most important virtue is her desire for improvement and ambition, and she is definitely the best in the world at this. The snail recovers too quickly, and the sword cannot withstand such stress. The situation gets out of control. It became clear that it was too late to attack, so if the other team members did not intervene, Darren would be in serious trouble. At the last moment, Lee intervened and doused the snail with oil, a risky but interesting strategy. The closer the slime is to the core, the stronger it is, so its acidity is higher than that of other monsters, so the sword cannot withstand the strain. First, you need to reduce the strength of the outer shell, and for this it would be ideal to set this monster on fire. It seems like he got angry very quickly because he was doused with oil. This snail probably doesn't like to bathe. It would be difficult to set it on fire, but for now, Lee distracts the monster and Kira remains in the blind spot. This allows her to seize the opportunity and set this bad guy on fire, a perfectly executed strategy. Before the battle began, Lee warned that if threatened, she would have to set the boss on fire with an arrow charged with mana. Kira started to panic and said that she had never done anything like this before, but the ice assured her that everything would work out, because her training had not been in vain. She has put in a lot of effort and worked to the limit of her capabilities, so now her time has come. Kira must believe in her own talent and take a step towards her dream of becoming a strong monster hunter. Today she did it. Even when it seemed like nothing would work out, she didn't give up on her dream. With the help of fire, the monster's outer shell has become weaker. Now the core can be easily seen. All that remains is to strike a well-aimed blow and send this bastard to hell because that's where he belongs. The entire team must unite at this difficult moment in order to make the final push. The core was very close. If you destroy it, the boss will die and the shopping mall dungeon will be cleared. Everything happened incredibly fast. Hardly anyone followed a strategy. Rather, they relied on their intuition and reflexes, and it worked. The dungeon was soon cleared, but the entrance is still blocked, and the building is surrounded by journalists and police. According to experts, the dungeon will disappear tomorrow if it is not cleaned up sooner. The grandfather, who was holding Sora in his arms, looked incredibly worried because he understood that his son was risking his own life at that moment. Lee said that he and Cyrus were going to take a walk to the shopping mall in the city center. This shopping center is called Darien. He promised to return soon, but everything did not go according to plan. Little Sora is also scared, although she doesn't understand much yet. But children have a great sense of when something bad is happening. Soon the entrance was opened and civilians began to come out, with the hunter Sehun being the first to come out. Soon, little Sora saw her mother and father ahead. She was incredibly happy, as was her grandfather. Everything ended wonderfully. Even though mom and dad are pretty tired, they are alive and well, and that's the most important thing. The family is finally united, despite all the difficulties and hardships, and today, a happy ending awaits them. As soon as Darren saw their daughter, she immediately fell in love with the little lady. She said that she would definitely buy her a toy or some sweet candy next time. Little Sora was incredibly happy to see her dad. She said she came here with her grandfather and pointed at him. It's immediately clear that there will be a very serious conversation between father and son at home, but right now it doesn't matter. The boy who was bitten by a spider was able to survive. He was very hurt and scared, but they managed to save him. The job of a hunter seems promising. It gives many privileges, but for this you have to risk your own lives, protecting people from monsters. Jae-hwan understood from the very beginning that his son had chosen a risky path. Now he would have to accept it, no matter how difficult it was. They are not officially hunters yet, but it is only a matter of time because they have already chosen what they will do in the future. We will have to decide who to leave our little daughter with, because it is too risky to take her with us on a mission. They couldn't find a nanny, so they'll probably have to turn to Grandpa again. He promised that he would be able to look after her in his free time. It wasn't difficult for him, especially considering that she was a very calm child. After that, he looked at Kira and said that he wanted to talk to her in person. When they went into another room, the grandfather said that he was not going to force her to marry his son. He wants to understand if she likes Lee, and at that moment the girl began to remember everything that had happened recently. She remembered all those moments when he cared not only about her, but also about their daughter, and her soul felt warm. She said that her attitude towards him was changing and now he was revealing himself as a completely different person. Grandpa was delighted with the words he heard and said that they must organize a wedding soon. He was probably in too much of a hurry. Jae-hwan understands perfectly well what this lady has gone through. Even though she has already become a mother, she is still too young. When Sora was just born, no one supported Kira. Her parents died many years ago, and Lee was not there during difficult moments in her life. Sometimes Kira blamed herself for all this. It seemed to her that because of her difficult character, the people around her were abandoning her. They had a bad relationship with Lee, and besides, it was she who initiated the latest conflict. The young mother was confident that she could cope with motherhood and at the same time be a successful businesswoman. She wanted to raise her daughter and also work full-time. But if she had a little experience, she understood that this was impossible. During difficult moments in her life, she thought about Lee a million times, but tried to forget about him and continue her journey alone. There were more and more difficult moments in her life. One day, Sora became seriously ill, and Kira thought about writing to Lee again. However, she didn't do it because she hoped that her energy would be enough for the child. Problems became more serious after Sora developed extraordinary abilities, although the little girl had not yet learned to control them. There were many people who wanted to take the young talent to their guild. It was at that moment that Kira realized that she would have to constantly protect this child from bad people. They agreed that Sora would not show his powers to anyone except his mother. Those were difficult times and we had to go through a lot of difficulties, but now all that is behind us. Now she has support. She is no longer alone, and Lee, as well as his father, are always ready to help her. She can trust them to shift some of the responsibilities onto their shoulders because they are also willing to help. Lee fully shares his father's position. He is no longer a little child because by returning to the past he wants to correct all his mistakes. Now they have a chance to build a strong and happy family, but for this they will have to work hard and constantly go out of their way to meet each other. The decision was made. They both had to do everything to get a hunting license, and Grandpa was ready to help her in this matter. When they returned home, they immediately went to bed. Lee had a strange dream. Although he wasn't sure that all this wasn't really happening, the city was in ruins, and it was hard to see even a single living creature, which is not surprising because it was incredibly cold outside. After walking a few meters forward, he saw a girl who looked very much like the adult Sora. He approached her and tried to understand why she did this, why she gave him a chance to start everything over from the beginning. He was having trouble getting the words out. It was unlikely to be anything physical. More likely he was just too worried. He could only stand and stare at her face as Sora screamed because she thought her father was disrespecting her. She said she despised him and wasn't going to forgive him for everything he had done. It seemed that at that moment she would kill her own father, but she opened her eyes and realized that she was in her bed. He sweated from fear, but now it's all behind him because he's in the past, and he can correct all his mistakes. The little daughter came to wake him up and have fun. Soon Kira entered the room. She said that today was a rest day, so they wouldn't be training. After breakfast, the guy decided to check his balance. The money was getting less and less, so something had to be done. When they can get a hunting license, they will start to make a small profit, but it won't be right away. There's still a lot of time before the certification, so we need to figure out how to make a living. Lee said that he and his daughter are practicing Sora therapy, a new teaching of Eastern doctors that is very beneficial for health. To perform this technique, you need to lie down on a soft bed and dream about something pleasant. Everything was perfect, but my mother doesn't like Oriental practices. At that moment, something incredible happened. Lee's balance was replenished, and Darren transferred a large sum of money to him. It turned out that Kira also received the same cash bonus. They couldn't believe that this really happened to them. It was decided to immediately call the girl and find out what happened. Maybe it was just a mistake. She explained that she had earned a lot of money for the Monster Corps, so she decided to share it with her teammates. After they get a license, they will be able to earn much more, and all this is just a nice bonus. She also said that the hunter exam will begin soon. It exists to assess the abilities of people who want to become hunters. Warriors who pass all the tests receive a license. They also receive the right to use all the benefits of the profession. Each of them will feel recognized because professional hunters are very respected figures in the community. Darren promised to come to the exam and support them. Lee thinks it's strange. Maybe this girl has ulterior motives. Maybe she wants to invite one of them to her guild, which is actually a pretty good idea, since her guild is one of the best in the country. In any case, this is a big event for their family because now they cannot worry about money. Looking at each other, they immediately understood where to direct these easy bonuses for clearing the dungeon. Every father and mother wants their child to wear the best clothes, so the decision was made almost immediately. Soon Sora was dressed in the latest fashion and wished her parents good luck on the exam. If they get a license, their lives will change for the better. But for this, they need to show all their talents. Darren agreed to stay with little Sora during this time. She would replace her grandfather, who also deserved a rest. Lee practiced so often that he had no time left to prepare for the written assignment. He is not particularly worried about this, and is confident that his experience will be enough to pass this exam. Before returning to the past, he failed this exam a huge number of times, but he always received the maximum number of points for the written part. His problem was the second stage, because due to a lack of strength, he constantly failed strength tasks. When he finally got his license, it was something incredible for him, because he truly earned the title of Hunter. Kira, on the other hand, is incredibly worried. It will be bad if she takes the exam in this condition. I decided to offer a small agreement. Whoever scores the lowest number of points in the written assignment will fulfill the winner's wish. Kira quickly agreed to these conditions, and now her excitement has turned into motivation. The operation to prevent Sora from becoming a thief has officially begun. So that their daughter does not have to go through 5 misfortunes in the future, it is necessary to lay the foundation for a happy childhood and youth. In Korea, there is a large house of swords. Today, there are events that are quite important for our history. The headmaster was informed that the certification of future hunters would begin today. This means that the master must pack up and hit the road. Today, he decided not to go by car but to walk. Particularly attentive viewers will recognize this man as Master Son, who later played an important role in the battle against Sora. Let's go back to taking the exam to become a professional hunter. Our main characters were able to successfully pass the written test. It turned out to be quite easy. Now they will have to face an artificial monster. They must defeat it in a limited time and not get seriously injured. Future warriors will be observed by representatives of various guilds. This is a great opportunity to show yourself at your best. A large metal monster was quickly formed from a small ball, and it will not be easy to deal with it. A large number of participants were unable to pass this physical test. After the written test, they thought they were almost hunters, but now they were faced with a harsh reality. Some even began to surrender before the battle began, which made the guild representatives upset. Soon, a holy swordmaster from Korea came to the exam. This is the first time he can be seen here. He usually avoids crowded events. This legendary warrior's name is Kam-san, and on the day the catastrophe began, he saved humanity from absolute destruction. After that, the hero founded a sword guild, and now the grove became famous throughout the world. His skills are second to none. As soon as people start talking about hunters, they immediately mention him, so his presence is important. Rumor has it that he came here for his granddaughter. It's hard to believe, but Darren is really his biggest weakness. Soon he saw another little girl next to his granddaughter and was quite scared. He thought his granddaughter had given birth to a baby, but it turned out that it was just his friend's second daughter who needed to be looked after. Little Sora called her grandfather Santa Claus. To be honest, he looks quite like him. After that, the conversation about the exam began. The Holy Sword was dissatisfied with this year's representatives. He said that they were too weak. That was until the 28th member of Team D passed the test in 1 minute. Thanks to her hard training, Kira was able to easily cope with this physical task, and Lee immediately congratulated her on her success. After that, it was his turn to face the Iron Monster. Now we will see what he is capable of in real combat. The guy looked determined and wanted to finish the test as quickly as possible, but a shadow of uncertainty crept under his skin. In his past life, he often failed physical tests, so now it is very important to forget about the past and move forward. This is a chance to start over with a clean slate. But for some reason, Lee can't even move. The people around him thought he was scared, and only the Holy Sword understood that this guy was trying to analyze his opponent and the situation around him. At the last moment, when it seemed that the monster would tear his head off, Lee easily dodged and avoided meeting death. Having passed this test countless times in the past, he had learned the monster's weaknesses. There is a huge hole in his armor. All that remains is to use this knowledge and destroy his opponent. Everyone knows that the weak points of training monsters are their joints, but our main character knows something more than everyone else. He acted completely atypically and surprised the esteemed audience with his battle strategy. The guild representatives had almost fallen asleep, watching the weak warriors, but now they were all awake and very attentive. No one could take their eyes off what was happening in the training arena because Lee was able to get the monster's core. He officially passed the physical test and destroyed this Terminator with ease. He did it in just 14 seconds. so we can talk about a new competition record. He immediately ran to Cyrus to celebrate their joint success with her. It was probably for the sake of these two hunters that Darren called her grandfather to this exam. Of course, everyone can see the opponent's weak point, but thinking through a strategy from start to finish and getting the core is a completely different level. After they received their hunting licenses, it was time to celebrate the victory. The exam drained all her strength, so Darren invited her friends over for a delicious dinner to restore her energy balance together. She promised to pay for everything because she had recently cleared another dungeon and made a lot of money. The girl is not worried about finances at all. She is sure that in the future, when they start earning, they will be able to thank her. From the very beginning, Lee thought that she would want to invite them to her guild. Perhaps he was too suspicious of her. A good attitude towards him, along with a feeling of gratitude, causes anxiety. The impression that there is some hidden meaning in this, not only because of how Darren was remembered, but also because the legendary Calm Son was her grandfather. After that, the daughter of the legendary warrior decided to ask where her friends bought their new weapons. If he introduces her to his weapons master, then in the future the blacksmith will definitely be introduced to the holy sword. The meeting of the best hunter and the best blacksmith can really have a big impact on the world. The problem is that all this has to happen much later, in the future. So this could again lead to the butterfly effect. A little later, they returned home and began preparing for their careers as hunters. Lee told Kira that he introduced their weapons master to Darren. The girl wants to change her weapons, so she needs a professional blacksmith. Lately, Lee has been thinking too much about the butterfly effect, and his anxiety has increased significantly because of it. When he heard the request to meet the blacksmith, he began to get incredibly worried. Then he felt a little better, because he realized that Darren was actually a good person. She only did good things and brought goodness into the world. This is no longer the same Darren who was drowning in a sea of problems. Now this girl can be trusted. It should also be noted that Kira and Lee have not yet officially become hunters. They are preparing to start their careers, but for this they need to pass another exam. They hope that everything will go well and they will finally be able to make a living with their talents. Kira felt it was the perfect moment to thank her daughter's father for his help. He put in a huge amount of effort to ensure that she passed her first hunter exam. It was the first time Lee saw her drunk. She must have been celebrating her victory too much. In any case, he is pleased to hear these words. They will still have time for such conversations after receiving their license. He could not even imagine that this conversation could lead to events that did not happen in his past life. But now, we are transported to Kunak Mountain. The final stage of becoming a hunter is clearing an entry-level dungeon in a room with random people. The final score stems from the hunter's ability to work as a team, so it is this aspect that will decide whether they receive a license or not. There will be two more guys on his team, the young Mansu and the more experienced Daejo. They set out to clear the dungeon, they have 3 hours to do it, and they can only use one type of weapon. Before everything started, the guys were given half an hour to plan their strategy. Mansu is a sorcerer, a rare gift that is highly valued in guilds, but Lee does not remember him at all from his past life. About the warrior Daeho, this hunter loves to fight with his fiery fists and is not a fanatic about weapons. That is, now he has met a hunter who will be called the king of boxing in the future, but now he is only at the beginning of his journey. Now their talents are not very important. They need to learn to work in a team, because only thanks to this can they pass the test. It is necessary not only to discuss battle tactics, but also to decide who will operate in which positions. If Lee wants to succeed, he needs to run this kindergarten because his partners are still too young. Soon, they entered the dungeon, and the entry-level quest began. Everyone has chosen a comfortable position for themselves. Mansu will operate from behind thanks to his large attack radius, and Daejo will be ahead of the entire team. As everyone has already guessed, Lee will be inside and giving orders. He already knows that people panic when they first enter a dungeon, so he wasn't surprised when Mansu asked to clear the place without him. Soon he was persuaded to go on a sweep, but it was already clear that he could become the weak link in the team. This young wizard decided to start a conflict with the captain, but the captain doesn't like it when someone on the ship commits a mutiny. He immediately made it clear to this model-looking guy who was in charge so that similar problems would not arise in the future. He ordered the sorcerer to remove all the jewelry from his body, otherwise it would all end very badly. The referee was next to them. He noted the captain's confidence and immediately wrote down his characteristics in a notebook. Everyone around knows that Lee scored maximum points during the physical test last week, so it's better not to joke with him. They continued exploring the dungeon, but so far they haven't encountered a single ant. Examiners may intentionally create atypical situations to assess the intelligence of participants. Soon they saw something strange. a huge hole leading deep underground. When clearing the initial dungeons, so he immediately focused and tried to calm down. It would have been better if Mansu had done exactly that, but this fool could not resist and began his journey into the abyss. The guys tried to save him and ordered him not to move. Now they will try to pull him up the mountain. This would be much easier to do if a huge ant monster hadn't appeared behind the sorcerer, in which case, only the Ant-Man can help. The guys realized that now it would be too difficult to help their friend because the monster was taking him with it into the abyss. I had to jump into this hole and end up outside the exam just to save my friend. They are the first to enter the mysterious dungeon, so a special quest has been started, and now they are required to clear out the ant lion's lair. As soon as they realized they were in a mysterious dungeon, they immediately began to look in different directions and explore the area. Rumor has it that unusual situations can occur during exams, but considering the reaction of their judge, everything that happened was not planned. There was no lair in this dungeon before Lee's regression, so the butterfly effect that Lee talks about so much must have worked again. Most likely, the sorcerer will be alive for some time, because such monsters do not immediately kill their victims. The entrance to the mysterious dungeon was closed as soon as they got here, which could lead to even bigger problems. It's immediately noticeable that Daejo is shocked. He's never been in a real dungeon, and their team is inferior, and they're too weak. If you clear this dungeon, you can get an elixir, a reward for clearing the mysterious dungeon. Every hunter knows that clearing a dungeon can yield various rewards. Elixir can be considered one of the best reward options. It enhances the hunter's physical abilities, which is why it is so desirable for Lee. Now he's like jumping into a burning house, but it's not all that bad, because their team includes the king of boxing and a man from the future. The decision was made almost immediately. Lee said that they had to save the wizard, no matter what it cost them. At that moment, he looked like a real hero from an anime. It's always nice to follow such a leader even to the depths of the abyss. Soon they moved forward to meet the adventure with confidence in their eyes. Their task is very simple. They need to clear the dungeon and save Mansa. Soon they encountered the first ants. Their boss ate these monsters and turned them into his own zombie army. They don't look incredibly dangerous, but you can't lose concentration when fighting them. Thanks to the captain's experience and intelligence, their team easily avoids all dangerous attacks. He acts as a true leader and is a pleasure to watch. They soon began to feel each other out and fought as a true team, although it would be more accurate to call them a duo. After some time, they approached the lair of this huge monster. Most likely Mansu is there. Although this guy looks like a fool, it is important to save him in order to successfully complete this task. They thought too much about saving their friend and completely forgot about their own safety. Lee began to attack the dungeon boss, but his armor is so powerful that it cannot be penetrated with ordinary weapons. He had fought monsters thousands of times and spent a huge amount of time studying their strengths and weaknesses, so now he had to remember everything. He doesn't have time. He needs to quickly understand his opponent's weak point and save Daejo. The future boxing king was very lucky to have such an experienced hunter by his side. By using the correct angle of attack, he was able to free his new comrade from the teeth of death. Now we can't think about resting until the monster has escaped underground. We need to finish it off. They were able to damage its eyes and antenna, but it wasn't enough to completely destroy the threat. To win, you need to support each other. If Lee acts alone, he won't succeed. Previously, everyone laughed at Daejo. It was believed that only a fool could give up weapons and fight with his fists. He was rejected by various guilds and didn't want to take their teams. You could even say that this guy was a loser. Today I found a person who believes in him and thinks his fighting style is incredible. This person is Lee. He said that Daejo was the strongest hunter of all the insects he had seen, and this made Daejo work at his full potential. Now this huge antlion must feel the force of a double attack from the young hunters. Daejo's incredible physical strength was needed more than ever today. He had been waiting for his prime time for a long time and finally felt a taste of future success. This guy has turned into a real fighter against monsters. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't even have support. Using his physical strength, he did everything possible to leave the lower part of the monster unprotected. He created ideal conditions for his teammate to attack. Everything else is just a matter of technique. Lee understands that he is facing the future king of boxing. He cannot hit his face in the dirt, so he must also demonstrate his talents. A few seconds later, he executed a technically perfect blow and cut the monster into 2 pieces. The system informed the boys that they were the first to defeat the antlion in the mysterious dungeon. The special quest has been completed. Now a reward and glory among young hunters await them. Soon, Lee and Kira came to the ministry and received their long-awaited hunting licenses. Even though the job was done, Lee didn't look very happy because he understood that these were just the first steps on a long journey. He saw his bracelet start to glow again, meaning a source of mana appeared somewhere nearby, but the siren didn't go off again. He began to panic, just like Kira. Strange things were happening around them, so trouble awaited them again. Before that, Sora looked upset. It turned out that her mother didn't let her eat the lollipop, and thus upset her daughter. It's hard to believe, but now this surge of energy is connected to Sora. It seems she has finally decided to get what she wants. Like the story of a ruined house and the Cretan bull that destroyed it, this girl's magic is getting out of control. Soon they returned home and put their daughter to bed. It was time to talk about what had happened. From the very beginning, they couldn't even imagine that their daughter wasn't that capable, but now they have to decide what to do with Sora's talents. Lee decided to dig deeper and find out what happened when their house was destroyed, which led to this situation. Kira said that she and her daughter had an unpleasant conversation that day because Sora wanted to find her father. Hearing that she would never see him again, she began to cry, and then the house was destroyed. Now that it's clear why Kira decided to find Lee, this puzzle becomes even clearer. Today, her antics didn't lead to disaster, but it was immediately clear that the little girl had enough strength, as if she were an experienced sorceress. Lee already knows that in the future Sora will become a very serious threat to humanity, but he is confident that he can change the future. His daughter has no control over her power at all. But this energy is activated by strong emotions. Of course, this is all just speculation, but due to strong emotions, Sora's mana becomes uncontrollable. We need to decide immediately what to do. If we don't intervene in the process, someone will definitely get hurt soon. In his past life, Sora's strength grew just as quickly, and his father also didn't know what to do. He was left without a wife and was busy with work, so sometimes he didn't even notice his daughter's growing energy. Honestly, he didn't even suspect that this could go too far, but now he understood something. One of the reasons Sora's magic is strengthened is because it is located where there is too little mana. If you take her to a place where there is enough mana, the situation may improve. There are only two such places in the world, a dungeon and a battlefield. It's obvious that Mom is against such excursions. It's incredibly dangerous and something terrible could happen at any moment. Her father is also afraid to take her to such dangerous places, even knowing what a thief she will be in the future. We must not forget that now this is a small child who wants love and support. It's a strange situation. In order to save her from a terrible future, she must be confronted with danger. There is no guarantee that doing this will change the future, but it is at least an attempt to improve the situation. Kira is ready to believe in Lee's strategy. They can go there with their daughter and protect her from the monsters. The main thing is that she be present in a city that is saturated with mana, and her parents will be responsible for her protection. Children are usually not allowed in such places, so you will have to call friends and ask for help. The next morning, the young family set off for the legendary sword house in Korea. They were immediately met by Darren. This girl always comes to the rescue in difficult situations. The daughter of the Holy Sword is always very happy to see Sora, so she will not refuse to help this young lady. Lee explained that they had come to ask for help, but first they had to go into the house. It turned out that the house is located on a high mountain, and in order to reach the entrance, you need to overcome a long distance. Kira and Lee are in good physical condition, but they barely slept last night, so they are not very prepared for the challenges. As soon as they reached their destination, they put their daughter to bed and fell asleep next to her. The sacred sword area is built in the traditional Korean style, which was invented during the Joseon dynasty. Soon, it was time to talk a little, and Darren asked what exactly they wanted to ask her. While little Sora slept peacefully, the adults talked about her problem and tried to find the right solution. Darren couldn't miss the opportunity to take a picture of the sleeping princess and completely forgot about the serious conversation. Let's talk about faults. They come in 3 types, and the first that comes to mind are cracks that release monsters and then disappear. There are also erosions. They charge large buildings and create dungeons. And of course, you can't ignore the constant rifts. They don't disappear and release monsters after a certain amount of time. The battlefield arises in places where a large number of such faults are concentrated. A young family wants to take advantage of such a place. Darren immediately agreed. They introduced her to the best blacksmith in the world, so now she feels obligated to thank her friends. The young family expected it to be a long and difficult negotiation, but it all ended almost immediately. Soon Darren went out to talk to her grandfather. She was away from her friends for a while. At that moment, a young girl entered the room and said that Darren had a guest. Lee couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the young and famous hunter Sehyun in front of him. They had already met during the dungeon crawl in the shopping mall and understood what kind of person this was. He came even after being humiliated by Darren, and judging by his reaction, it was his first time here. Before leaving, Sehun pointed his finger at Lee and said that they needed to talk. It is not known what the conversation will be about, but the mere invitation to dialogue is enough to make Lee start to worry. They went outside to talk, Lee looking upset because he couldn't kick this guy out of someone else's house. It turned out that he came here to collect a reward for clearing out the shopping mall dungeon. This guy has completely lost his mind. He believes he discovered this dungeon and therefore is entitled to his share of the profits. He wanted to clean up the place after the entrance opened, but he was beaten to it and done so without permission. Sehun reminded him that he was the leader of the Knights Guild, a star with an impeccable reputation, so it was better not to conflict with him. He understands that Lee has no experience or reputation, and that he did not have a license when he cleaned out the dungeon, and this could lead to problems. Lee decided to remind this fool how much he was shaking with fear while cleaning up the shopping mall. He reminded that everyone was on equal terms, but Sehun decided to run away like a little girl. In his opinion, Sehun is not worthy of the right to be a hunter, so he is not going to share the prizes with him. Soon, Darren finished talking to her grandfather and returned to her guests. She said that her grandfather had allowed them to use the battlefield and began asking about Lee. When the girl found out that Sehun had come, she became incredibly angry and said that she was not happy to see such guests in her home. Kira began to worry about Lee. He had been searching for the battlefield all evening, and now he might be too aggressive in his conversation with Sehun. She was indeed right about this, because at that very moment a new conflict broke out on the street. Boys are boys. If talking doesn't work, they are always ready to take out a weapon and start fighting. Sehun couldn't believe he was losing to this newcomer, easily parried his first attack and began to counterattack. Even when he fought against earth spiders, he never encountered the same power as Lee. This made Sehun nervous and his opponent sensed it. He understood that Sehun became a hunter only because of her beautiful eyes and smile. Sehun is sure that he must win. He does not know that his opponent is actually living a second life and has plenty of experience. At this moment, Lee realized that he should not demonstrate all his strength and techniques. If he easily defeats his opponent, Sehun will immediately run to Darren to ask for a reward. He knows how to tell lies instead of the truth. This guy is a born manipulator. He will try to drag Kerr into his guild, and if he succeeds, the terrible future may repeat itself. It seemed that Sehun was doomed. But at that moment, Lee felt weakness in his legs and fell to the ground. He didn't understand what was happening and why he seemed to lose consciousness during the battle. Meanwhile, Sehun realized that he was lucky and his opponent had spent all his mana. Now he has the perfect opportunity to kill Lee, if of course he has enough strength of character to do so. This perfect opportunity should be taken advantage of, and then you can pretend it was an accident. It seemed that Lee was doomed, but the legendary master of the Holy Sword intervened in this conflict in time. Although this is a place for training, Sehun insulted this sacred ground with his sword. The dream ordered him to leave immediately and never return here again. It was at this moment that the girls went outside and saw what was happening. They thought that Grandpa had beaten Lee, but the Holy Sword explained that he had only saved this young hunter. At this moment, the Holy Sword decided to say a few words to the boy to corner his opponent. This is a great battle strategy, but not perfect. During his constant training, Lee became too tired and used up all his vitality. We must not forget that rest is also an important part of a warrior's training. Then the Holy Sword promised to give them the opportunity to visit the battlefield, as if guessing why they needed it. Sehun was trying to escape from the Holy Land at that moment, but that doesn't mean we'll forget about this guy, his evil soul that will play a role in our story. Soon, Lee went on a well-deserved rest and slept for 2 days. He fully recovered his strength. Now we need to focus on the upcoming battle. They have no time limit, so we can take our time. Kira has already managed to study all of her partner's notes, so now she is confident of a successful cleanup. They left Sora with Darren. The master's daughter will guard the girl at the entrance to the dangerous area. Then her parents can fully concentrate on the battle and the monsters. While they risk their own lives, their friend enjoys playing with the little princess. Today she saw for the first time what Sora was capable of. This girl was not going to hide her talents from the world. By evening, there were almost no monsters left in the forest, surviving and hiding from hunters. They did a great job and can now go back and enjoy playing with their daughter. As soon as they returned to Darren, this girl immediately showed her concern and said that they needed to have a serious talk. She understands that it's none of her business, but she wants to hint to her parents that their daughter is a witch. They had to tell her everything they knew. Now there was no point in hiding anything from Darren. It was impossible to hide it, and besides, it didn't make sense, because this girl didn't wish them any harm. Lee immediately explained that it was a secret, because the Wizards Tower would immediately try to take this young talent away from them. The Tower of Wizards is an organization created for the best wizards of the era. They have many opportunities to influence the world. Taking advantage of their position in the past, they took Sora with them, which is why it is important to stabilize her mana level. This little princess must not fall into the hands of these sorcerers under any circumstances. And now, Darren understood everything. She said she would go with them because she was willing to do anything for Sora. It was decided to accept her proposal because together they would be much stronger than separately. The vision of an ordinary person does not see the mana around, but Sora feels it and says that he sees a blue glow. Soon the father saw that his bracelet began to glow, and he received confirmation of his daughter's words. From the very beginning, it was clear that this was helping Sora feel better. She started laughing and completely relaxed. It seemed that everything terrible was behind us. But at that moment, a siren started screaming in the forest, announcing an immediate evacuation. The hunters began to flee to safety. They immediately heard the sound of a crack appearing. Usually such situations are not unpredictable, but today they were unlucky. The exit from the battlefield was completely closed. Now they are in even greater danger. A few seconds later, the boss of this field appeared behind them, and an unexpected quest began. Now they must destroy the mountain golem, despite the fact that it is larger than all the other monsters they have encountered. Lee asked Kira to stay away from danger. She is the fastest of them all, so she will be able to protect her daughter. The guy checked in advance that cracks would not appear, and he also knows that the boss never comes without support. There's no doubt he was intrigued by the mana Sora used. Soon, a huge monster began attacking little people. For him, it was all like a game. A mountain golem is a monster that hides its core behind a stone chest. If you don't attack actively enough, you will never win in life, so you have to act very decisively. The only way to defeat him quickly is to find and destroy the core, and that requires teamwork. This core is usually located in the monster's head or neck, which Lee learned from books. There is no point in attacking without a clear strategy. It will only lead to defeat and even greater problems. You always have to stay calm, take the right position, and attack at the same time. Instead of fighting against the people, the golem began to move in an unknown direction. Only a little later did it become clear that he wanted to take the child with him, because his mother was the one who interested him the most. Now he has two goals at once, and it's too late to give Kira the signal. We need to destroy the monster much faster than it can reach Kira and Sora, and for this we need a plan. Let us remind you that in the future, Darren will learn an incredible sword attack technique. Currently, this technology is not yet at the required level, but there is no other choice. We must try to change the situation for the better. The girl understands that she shouldn't rush like last time. She needs to remember her training and act focused. An accurate strike will help destroy even a stone giant, but only with the right technique. She succeeded. Darren hadn't been this happy with her achievements in martial arts for a long time. In any case, the monster is not dead yet. Although the blow was powerful, it is not enough. In the future, she will be able to destroy such monsters in a matter of seconds. But for now, she needs to continue training. Until they completely destroy the golem, it will constantly regenerate using its mana. It seems like this huge rock wants to crush them both with its bare hands, so it's better to run away immediately. Unfortunately, the young hunters did not have time to do this and were already mentally saying goodbye to life. But a miracle happened. An unknown energy completely took over the monster and transformed it into a large polar bear. Just like that, Kira and Sora were safe. They managed to escape from the huge monster, and now their lives are not in danger. The mother understands that Lee and Darren are in danger and wants to help them. She explained to her daughter that the monster was very bad and had to be stopped, so she had to go back and fight it. At that moment, little Sora said that she also wanted to help and asked to take her with her. Obviously, Kira was shocked. She did not expect such a turn of fate at all. At first, she wanted to refuse, but then she saw that something strange was happening to her daughter, and she could no longer do anything. Little Sora approached the monster and activated his incredible ice energy. Kira couldn't understand what was happening, but some unknown force prevented her from intervening and stopping her daughter. A little later, the mother saw her daughter on the ground. She had fallen asleep due to the loss of a huge amount of energy. Then Kira looked up and saw what had happened to the huge golem. At this point, Lee still didn't quite understand what was happening, so he took the opportunity and descended to the ground with Darren. Obviously, only a very powerful sorcerer could do something like this. But who is he and why did he decide to help? Only a little later did the young father begin to suspect that his daughter might have done it. Now is not a good time to analyze the situation because the monster is aggressive again, so we need to think about rescue. The great polar bear, although it looked dangerous, had become weak and incapable of battle. It seems that the golem will easily destroy it and break it into a million pieces. It seemed that way until the bear took out his magic wand and began to defend himself. It certainly doesn't compare to the battle between Godzilla and King Kong, but it's still fun to watch. As if hypnotized, Lee and Darren watched this battle and couldn't even move. Soon the bear began to win and crushed his stone friend. He was able to extract its inner core and destroy it, and at that moment the system immediately reported victory over the glass golem. The unexpected quest was completed. The battlefield was completely cleared, so the worst was behind us. Soon the young family returned home for a well-deserved rest. They have a lot to talk about today. Darren promised that no one would find out about what happened in the mountains, so her friends could sleep peacefully. They were not seriously injured, but only received a few minor scratches. Sora was incredibly tired from this busy day, and as soon as they returned home, she immediately went to bed. Incredibly, today she created a huge bear with creation magic, not summoning magic. Summoning is similar to using a familiar, which draws power from its master's mana. Today, Sora created a completely new magical creature. Summoning and creating from scratch are completely different things. It's safe to say that their little daughter is already one of the most powerful witches in the world. After talking with her friends, Darren saw that unknown people had come to her house. They don't look like friends and grandfather, but they look very serious and want to talk. When Sora woke up, her parents immediately began asking her how she had created the large polar bear. The girl explained that she wanted to punish the bad monster, but she herself doesn't understand how she managed to do it. Lee heard someone knocking on their door, probably guests had arrived that evening. At that moment, Darren called him. The girl said that she had urgent news. She warned her friend that a representative of the Magic Tower had come to him, at which point Lee's heart began to beat at an incredible speed. When they fought the monster, there was a surge of enormous energy. This energy was detected by the fault-finding radar. Now they are looking for people who were on the battlefield at that time and interviewing various witnesses. Darren continued to tell all the details, but it seemed that Lee was not listening to her at all. He remembered what had happened in his past life and realized that he could never allow this story to repeat itself. The system immediately reported that Lee Sora's first misfortune had just begun. A unique quest has begun. The father's first task will be to protect his daughter from William Taylor. At that moment, Kira approached him and tried to understand what was happening. He explained that the people from the Tower of Witchcraft were looking for them because of what happened on the battlefield, and now these people had come to their home. Procrastinating will only increase suspicions about their family, so it's a bad option. All that remains is to trust your intuition and ask your little daughter to do something for her parents. Soon, William Taylor was let into the house. He said that he was the wizard from the tower and had come to ask them a few questions. He apologized for his late visit and explained that the Hunters Association had tasked him with the investigation, so he was counting on their help. In a past life, William Taylor was also present. He was the head of the British branch of the Wizard's Tower. His status is currently unknown, but it will not be easy to fool this experienced sorcerer. His assistants are already looking around the house for traces of mana, but so far they haven't noticed anything. The main thing is that this terrible man does not feel Sora's mana, and everything else is no longer important. Before sending him home, they talked to their daughter about something important. The parents explained that bad people want to find Sora's power, so the mana must be hidden deep within. If Lee is right in his guesses, then the daughter's magic is getting out of control, not because she can't control it. In fact, she simply didn't learn to do it, probably because she never tried to master this power. William already knows that the young parents have passed the Hunter exam and have also recently been to the House of the Holy Sword. He decided to ask if the two of them defeated the monster on the training ground. Lee replied that they did it with Darren's help. Soon, talk began that a huge release of mana energy had been noticed, as well as suspicious objects found on the battlefield. It became clear that these were the remains of a polar bear, but they couldn't show that they knew what it was. After the ice bear defeated the monster, it broke into small pieces and slowly melted. No one could have even thought that the small remains of this bear would be found. But what happened, happened. Lee said he would like to help, but he doesn't recognize anything he sees in the photo. William Taylor feels that both hunters have a strong charge of mana, but as strong as the one that was on the battlefield. He thought he had taken the wrong path, said goodbye, and wished the young family good luck in the future. After he left, Darren called them. The girl almost died of excitement. She was afraid that her friends would be caught, but everything ended well, and now the worst is behind her. It seemed that you could rest and think about the future tomorrow, but the system reported that the quest was not yet completed. So far, their daughter's misfortune has been activated, perhaps due to William Turner sensing Sora's mana. There's no guarantee that Lee will be able to stop him. He's not much stronger than a normal human right now. William Taylor is very strong, and it will be almost impossible to stop him. The wizards are very powerful and can take Sora by force. Now we cannot relax because of past life experiences. On the contrary, we need to work more actively and become even stronger. This young hunter has a huge responsibility on his shoulders. He must protect his own family. Lee used his knowledge of the future very carefully, but there was no more time for hesitation. To begin, you need to research all available information and find a person who is important enough for their story. He began working that same night, and within a week, he had made some progress in this direction. TV stars are always shown on TV, but their lives are not much better than the lives of ordinary people. One famous woman with blonde hair is heading into the dungeons again today. She's doing it just for publicity. Her name is Hiram. She is the heiress of a corporate boss who loves to attract attention. This does not mean that she is a weak hunter. On the contrary, this girl is well-trained and armed according to all the canons of the profession. Today she came to go down to the Quan underground station. When she found herself in this dark place, she saw that there were no monsters here. Someone had already cleared this dungeon. Her weapons and protective gear are in perfect order. She is also in good shape, but she still doesn't feel confident. Soon she saw a man, probably another hunter who had come here before her. She wanted to ask him about the person who cleared this dungeon, but this man started attacking. This man did not come alone. With the help of his sword, he managed to wound Hiram, and it seems that he is not going to stop there. Whoever it is, she wants to destroy it as soon as she gets out of here, but her powers are leaving her body. In this state, it will be difficult to get out of here alive unless, of course, some superhero saves her at that moment. When superheroes come to the rescue, it's always unexpected, and today's situation is no exception to the rule. Lee began to beat the criminals despite the fact that they were armed. Very quickly, he made them regret what they had done. Hiram asked the boy who he was and why he was helping her. He replied that he was just passing by and happened to hear screams. The high-tech company currently ranks first in the production of Korea's most famous weapons. In their arsenal are all types of weapons used by experienced hunters. There you can find combat weapons, protective gear, and potions, and today Lee saved the daughter of the boss of this corporation. Hiram tried to learn as much information as possible about her savior. He turned out to be no Prince Charming. He was almost married and had a child. But in any case, he saved her life. In that case, she is obliged to thank this guy, and is ready to pay generously. Lee replied that he didn't need the money, although of course it was hard for him to refuse such an offer. He can get a huge amount of money, but if he agrees, then the relationship with Karam can be forgotten. This girl values human qualities and hates selfishness and commercialism, so she requires a special approach. She is ready to thank and give her savior information about the still uncleared dungeons. Her gift is a task, but he can decide for himself whether to participate in it. The tiger's dungeon hasn't been cleared yet. A new monster has been found there, and a team has even been assembled for the clearing. Only pieces of dead bodies remained of this team. 5 of the best warriors were killed in this hellish dungeon. They obtained all these photos using a video recorded by one of the team members. What happened there is even difficult to describe. It can be compared to a real horror movie. Lee said that he was interested in this offer and wanted to go to this place alone. He understands that this quest was done to test his abilities. If someone wants to see his potential, he is ready to show everything he is capable of. She really wants to test him in real life. He seems like the kind of guy who backs up his words with actions. In the evening, Lee returned home and saw his happy daughter, who was more and more happy to see him every day. Previously, he could not even imagine that he would feel so comfortable at home. In such moments, any worries are forgotten. He is now surrounded by incredible women, the best daughter in the world and his future wife, at least that's what he hopes. The young princess said that her father smelled very delicious, although he didn't notice it. Kira decided to check out this scent. It was the first time he'd seen her so close to him since she had returned. No matter how you look at this girl, she is incredibly beautiful, but now she felt that Lee smelled of women's perfume. Probably all this happened after the meeting with Hiram. You will have to explain everything that happened in order not to lose good relations with Kira. He explained that this smell was not his at all and he didn't know how to lie. If he had a mistress, he would have told her right away, so there's nothing to worry about. Soon Kira smiled and said that she believed his words, although in reality she was ready to kill him just a few seconds ago. Several days have passed since these events, and we are transported to the entrance to the tiger's dungeon. It seems only Hiram has the right to clean this dungeon, because there is no one else around. From this woman's assistant, he received all the items he would need in the dungeon. Now you can dive into the tiger's dungeon and see the world of adventure and risk firsthand. As soon as he entered, the system notified him of the start of the quest, and the cleanup began. The biggest danger of this place is the incredible darkness. Even a powerful flashlight won't help. Of course, this shouldn't stop our hero. especially if he can use the night snowflake. This elixir, which allows you to see in the dark, he received after defeating a large ant monster. As soon as the elixir was applied, Lee immediately felt the effect and began to see well in the dark. His daughter is waiting for him at home, so he must clean up the place and return to his family. A huge number of monsters have been waiting for fresh blood for a long time, so all parties are happy. These monsters are professional hunter-killers. Their main strength is not technology at all, but numerical superiority. They haven't studied martial arts, so they're easy to defeat alone, but when there are many of them, they become a real problem. At one point, the monsters stopped attacking the boy. He didn't understand what was happening until he turned his head and saw what was behind him. Hiram didn't say at all that bodies had been found, so maybe someone was still alive. He will be very lucky if he can actually find survivors. And judging by the reaction of the monsters, there is someone behind this door. In the video, one of the hunters ran away and died of fear, probably because he saw something incredibly scary, or was sensitive to vibration and sound. Soon Lee realized what had scared the hunter so much. He met this monster in person and regretted being born. He had never seen anything like it in his life. He had not even read about such monsters in his books in the past. Thanks to his quick reaction, he was able to injure this giant and not let himself be eaten. But this is just the beginning. This demon doesn't need quick reactions and flexibility. It just waits for its victim and then eats it. The monster is able to copy the voice and appearance of its victim in order to lure other people into an ambush. It is called a mimic. There was little information about this monster even in the future. Now nothing is known about these creatures at all. It turned out to be much faster than expected. Even despite its large dimensions, it remains fast. In its mouth are several hundred razor-sharp teeth. If these teeth touch you, you are dead. On the other hand, Lee only blocked his spear attack, and that was enough to injure the monster as it has a weak shell. Now you need to find the perfect moment and land a well-aimed shot. That might be enough for victory. This monster knows how to think and choose the right voice to intimidate its enemy. He began to imitate the voice of a little girl and call Lee his father. Soon he even began to imitate Sora with his body. So this mimicry is extremely insidious. Lee understands perfectly well that this is just an ambush and is not going to believe the monster. But the emotions inside him win. When emotions come into play, the brain shuts down and a person forgets about strategic thinking. Lee was very lucky that he had experience from a past life. He came to this dungeon after careful preparation. He knew that trouble would await him, so he received protective equipment as a gift from Hiram. This suit not only increases the power of mana flow, but also has insulating protection and frost resistance. Although even this is not the main advantage of this suit, because if you pass mana through it, it will become incredibly strong and solid. So as soon as the monster tried to take a bite of its dinner, it immediately started screaming in pain. He very quickly regretted meeting Lee in the dungeon. Today is the day of reckoning. The mimic has killed a huge number of people who came to this dungeon, but he will no longer cause problems for humanity. Although he resisted until the very end, he must be finished off and his story must end. With his last strength, he tried to survive and force his enemy to change his attitude towards him. He did everything to make Lee remember all the difficult moments of his past life. The mimic pretended to be Sora and reminded her that she had gone through difficult hardships. This might have worked if he had been faced with an ordinary hunter. But Lee is unique in his own way. The monster was finished, you could forget about it and move on. At that moment, an unknown woman approached him and told him not to lose his heart in the future. She even called his name, and her behavior really scared our main character. She can't tell him who she is, but she explains that she came to change the reward. He should use this reward only in emergency situations and not lose himself. The woman promised that they would meet again soon and said that she knew his exact location. Lee tried to stop her, but she disappeared and the system reported that the dungeon had been cleared. A few hours after these events, he returned to his home. He was met again by his happy daughter. She was smiling and wanted to hug her dad. It wasn't easy for him. He was remembering the events of today and didn't feel very comfortable. Any battle with monsters takes a piece of the hunter's soul. These monsters change a person from the inside, but few people know about it. My daughter had been waiting for him all this time. It seemed like they hadn't seen each other for a very long time. In her past life, she also constantly waited for her father, and it was painful to go to sleep without his embrace. It's hard to admit, but the facial expression gave Lee the opportunity to understand how much Sora was suffering. This time he wants to apologize for being late and promise that he won't leave her alone with anyone else. The next morning, he went straight to Hiram's to talk about cleaning out the dungeon. Lee said that he received a ring as a reward, although the girl was not very happy with it. She believed that he would get at least some artifact, because the dungeon was very dangerous. Lee said that maybe he was just unlucky, but in any case, he was happy to have the opportunity to clear this dungeon. Hiram believes that the reward should be much more valuable than the ring, so he offered him money again. Lee realized that he had to seize the opportunity and name what he wanted to get. That same day, Kira went to training to improve her shooting skills. Her mind was occupied with something else entirely. She noticed that Lee had been acting rather strangely lately. He constantly smells of women's perfume and a ring has appeared on his hand. She probably thought for no reason that their relationship could improve, even though he proposed marriage. But he probably found another woman. On the other hand, they have a lot in common. They have come a long way together and this has strengthened their relationship. Maybe he's doing all this just for his daughter. Or maybe he really loves Kira. So far, this whole story is too mysterious. At that moment, Lee approached the mother of his child and frightened her. He came to greet her and give her something. It turned out that he was able to get another costume for Cyrus that he could wear to clear the dungeon. This suit is perfect for all occasions and is the best technology for hunters today. It seemed that Kira wasn't listening to him at all, but was thinking about something completely different. She looked at his body and couldn't understand when he became so handsome and muscular. A little later, she remembered the suit again and thanked him for the gift. In exchange for this costume, he received another request to clear a dangerous dungeon. He showed Kira the contract and said that now they had a new mission that they could go on together. The girl agreed and soon they found themselves on the border of Seoul. 5 to 10 people are needed to complete the dungeon, so we had to assemble a team. First of all, they called their friend Darren, who is 22 years old and a swordsman who has already established herself at the highest level. After that, it was decided to take Daejo with him. He has more experience and also very strong fists. Then Lee suggested taking Hiram to the team. She would add balance to them. Of course, they all don't have the best experience, but they will become outstanding warriors in the future. Lee hopes that doesn't stop these hunters from showing their potential. Or maybe he's just being too modest. Now it was time to choose a captain, and all the team members looked at Lee at the same time. They made it clear to him that they considered him the ideal candidate for the role of captain, so this problem was also quickly resolved. Now it's time to go into a dangerous dungeon and face a large number of monsters. This time their team is much larger than usual, and this may lead to unexpected plot twists. Soon a new quest was started. They must clear the dungeons of an ancient tomb of forgotten warriors. Daejo immediately demonstrated his fist-fighting talent and knocked out the first monster. It really looked impressive, but now he would have to repeat this trick with other demons. You can't do it here without the help of your comrades, but that's exactly why they came here together. Very quickly, Lee and company began destroying the Draugr, which in Norse mythology are the dead who came back to life and began to take revenge. Soon, Lee noticed something interesting. His ring began to absorb the souls of monsters. Currently, there is 1 soul in his ring, but this number may increase in the future. He decided that all this was unnecessary nonsense and did not pay any special attention to this situation, so he continued to destroy the enemies. Hiram wanted to help, but her comrades mixed with monsters, and she might accidentally kill one of her friends. In such situations, one must act very carefully because modern weapons can only worsen the situation. On the other hand, leaving the team without support is even worse, because they will not be able to defend themselves against a large number of monsters for long. At this point, Lee showed himself to be a true leader and began to give orders to his comrades. Darren must clear the way for her partner and draw attention to herself. She copes with such duties perfectly and always carries out every order of the captain. This plan allows Daejo to show all of his strongest sides. It turned out that he was not only a skilled puncher, but also took lessons from taekwondo masters. After they retreated, Hiram was allowed to demonstrate what her rifles were capable of. This woman loves the latest technology and came here to experience the adrenaline of using her father's weapons. This is how the army of the living dead was cleared, and the team of hunters made their way deeper into the dungeon. Lee saw firsthand how impractical firearms could be in a dungeon. If they had not acted so coordinated, things could have ended much worse. Usually mana is transferred to weapons through the hands, but with bullets it's not so easy because they are inside the magazine. That is why bullets are made from metals found in the dungeon. Such material is especially effective against monsters. These metals are incredibly expensive, and Hiram has just spent a huge amount of money. She has known how to spend money since childhood. The girl grew up in a wealthy family and does not feel the true value of these paper bills. Soon the captain approached another monster and saw how his ring had once again absorbed the soul of the dead man. Now there are 8 souls in his left hand, but it is not yet known how to use this to his advantage. It looks like some kind of artifact. Its mystery must be solved, otherwise it will be of no use. Soon they continued their journey deeper into the dungeon and encountered monsters again. This time they were much better prepared, warned each other of danger, and acted as a true team. Everyone knew their place in the global strategy, supported others, and did not interfere with their comrades. It became noticeable that they really are becoming a better team with each new battle, which is exactly what should be expected from talented warriors. Hiram was concerned that there were so many newcomers around her. She was surprised that they weren't having any problems so far. She looks at the young captain and realizes that without his leadership qualities, they wouldn't have been able to get this far. He is much more talented than she initially thought, and it seems like she likes him. Soon they finally reach the room where the dungeon boss should be. It feels like they've stepped inside some kind of relic, and that's probably what it is because it's an ancient tomb of warriors. Inside the huge room, they saw a statue of a knight and what looked like a wooden coffin. It seemed that there was no one in this room. But Lee understood where the danger lay and ordered them to immediately disperse in different directions. It was like an ambush. If he hadn't warned his friends, they would have turned. Within a minute, they realized who the real enemy was in this room and regretted coming to this purge. A huge monster began to attack and its first victim was Darren. The girl managed to defend herself, and Hiram immediately began shooting at his opponent's head. Obviously, this strategy didn't help much, but at least it distracted him from Darren. The monster's armor is made of durable dungeon materials, but if you hit the core, it should be enough to destroy the boss. Very quickly, Lee guessed that the nucleus was not in the neck at all, but in some other area. In fact, there are not many options. The core is either in the head or in the heart. All that remains is to find it. Despite its large size, the boss moved quite quickly, so it was able to anticipate Lee's attack. His defense worked almost perfectly and the guy was unable to land his powerful shot. Although it was a failure, sometimes failure provides an opportunity for future victory. The monster was distracted and completely forgot about Darren, who took perfect advantage of the moment and attacked. It turned out that even this was not enough, because the core was located elsewhere. They needed to find a safe place and retreat immediately, but Darren couldn't draw her sword. The entire monster has a huge amount of energy and strength. It will be difficult to stop it even despite the numerical superiority. When they came here, they overestimated their chances and forgot that this was their first test together. Such a difficult moment presents a good opportunity to show his heroic qualities, and Daejo took advantage of this opportunity. He attacked the monster and did everything he could to help his friends get out and retreat. It's hard to believe that even a powerful warrior like Daeho can barely hold back the boss. That says a lot. If the core is not in the heart or the neck, then only the head remains. Finding a broken arrow, Lee decided to use it and stick it in the boss's head. He was right. The core was indeed in the head, but the arrow was too short. He had the perfect chance to send the monster to hell, but now he has to think about his own safety again. When the boss grabbed his hand, intending to tear Lee to shreds, he turned his attention to the ring. At this point, Kira took the opportunity and began attacking this giant in a weak spot. She tried to aim at the core, which is in the head, and end this unpleasant battle. Oddly enough, she took advantage of her chance perfectly and sent the boss to hell. The system reported that they were able to defeat the guardian of the forgotten dead. Now the ring has once again absorbed the soul of the dead monster. Now this artifact contains almost 100 dead souls. Surely the stronger the opponent, the more valuable his soul. And this is logical. If this huge monster is really a boss, then the dungeon should have ended, but there was no message. The quest is still not completed, although this monster was definitely the boss of the dungeon, or so it seemed. The hunters saw that the coffin was beginning to open. Now it seemed that the huge monster was only the bodyguard of the real boss. Soon they saw something very scary. Lee does not remember seeing anything like it in his past life. This scary monster looked at him and asked where he got this ring. It turned out that only Lee understood it. Everyone else couldn't understand this language. Soon the dead man said that it was too light and put out the fire. Everything around became dark and it was difficult to see each other. It must be remembered that this team is made up of beginners. They are not ready for such situations. Instead of saving his comrades, Lee will have to fight the boss because he has chosen him as his first target. This ugly monster wants to take the green ring for himself. He believes that ordinary mortals have no right to receive such artifacts. Lee will have to endure hardship if he wants to save his friends. He must kill this demon without support. Hiram is the most experienced of all the team members. She understood that without light, they were doomed. Very quickly, she figured out a way to light up the room. And now they can see each other again. We need to pull ourselves together and help our captain. Even though he's doing well himself so far, it feels like the boss is on a completely different level compared to his bodyguard. But that doesn't mean he can't be defeated. If you increase your mana level and direct it to the enemy's weak spot, it can help you win. The problem is that the mana supply runs out quickly, and without decisive action, everything can end badly. At this difficult moment, Lee even began to think about giving up the ring in order to save his own life. There are no weak spots in this opponent's defense, and it's so difficult to dodge. If this continues, any minimal mistake will lead to death. Lee mentioned that he had no right to die, because if he did, his main mission would be a failure. We must not forget that his beloved daughter is waiting for him at home, and he must save her from the terrible fate of the future. This girl deserves a second chance, deserves to live a happy and peaceful life with her family. She must not turn into a monster again that will force humanity to disappear from planet Earth. At this moment, the system suggested that he use the power of the Ring of Fate. Finally, we will see what this artifact is capable of. He must choose the number of souls he wants to absorb, although he has no idea how it is used. There was no time to think. He selected absolutely all the souls that were in the artifact and ordered them to be used immediately. The ring immediately began to glow brightly green, and a protective barrier of mana formed around it. He felt significant pain, but it was nothing like being struck by lightning. On the contrary, this pain gave him strength. His physical attributes were temporarily enhanced, as was his mana level, so he immediately began to seize the initiative. Now it no longer feels like beating a hunter. On the contrary, this hunter has become stronger than the true Lord of the Dead. He feels an incredible surge of strength. Although just a few seconds ago he felt that he wouldn't be able to hold out for long. After a while, his strength will run out. And even by uniting with his friends, he will not be able to stop the boss. That's why you need to act incredibly quickly, and he had no problem with that. The problem started when the boss got angry and said he was ready to do anything to get this ring into his collection. It was at this point in the fight that Lee saw the boss's inner core, which seems to be another hidden function that was activated with the ring. Now all that remains is to choose the right moment to attack and deliver a well-aimed blow to the heart area. If you destroy the boss's protective barrier, you can easily break through his internal defenses and tear his heart apart. The deed was done. The system notified them that they were able to kill the Forgotten Hero and be the first to clear the Dungeon of Forgotten Warriors. Now his strength returns to normal, as does his mana level. The ring was able to absorb the soul of the slain monster, and now it has even more energy than it had before the fight began. A little later, the system also reported that the King's Ring had absorbed part of humanity, and this was not good news at all. In any case, the ring helped save lives and clear the dungeon, so now it was time to return home. Lee kept trying to understand what it meant to absorb humanity because he didn't feel any changes in his body. Lee turned his head and saw his wife joking with her daughter. He can't help but smile when he sees these two beautiful girls, but for some reason he doesn't show any emotions right now. He looked at himself in the mirror and couldn't understand why he wasn't laughing. It seemed like he couldn't even do it on his own. The girls also noticed a change in his behavior. It seemed like he came back from the task completely different. It was as if all his emotions had disappeared, which was what the warning about the loss of humanity meant. He was afraid of losing everything that made him human, and that he would never be able to smile again when he looked at his beautiful daughter. He hugged her before going to bed, but his mind was in a completely different place, and he felt an incredible anxiety in his heart. At this moment, a strange change occurred. As soon as he wished Sora goodnight, the system reported that some of his humanity had been restored. This happened again after he kissed his daughter and called her a little angel. So there is a pattern to this. He realized that everyone who was around Sora felt better. It seemed as if Sora therapy really existed. Now this girl becomes his real good luck charm. He will never be able to give up his love for her. They went to bed and rested well after the difficult events. New adventures await them the next day. A tall man in a hat appeared at the main office of the Knights Guild. Let us recall that this was William Taylor, a representative of the Wizard's Tower. He came to the leader of the Knights Guild, Master Seihin, to talk to him and ask a few questions. He knows that the hunter was recently at the House of the Holy Sword of Korea and wants to know if he noticed anything strange there. In fact, Sehun wanted to forget everything that happened there and remembered it as a bad dream, so he replied that he didn't see anything strange. William said that 2 days later and after Sehun's visit, a powerful explosion of mana was recorded at the Holy Sword training ground. It turned out that this mana charge was even greater than usual when a bow appears from a dungeon. That's why William Taylor came here to talk and find out any details about that day. Sehun said that he met with Lee and Kira the day he came to Darren's, and an interesting conversation ensued between them. He wanted to get paid for cleaning out the basement of the shopping center, but he failed to do so. The most interesting thing about that day was that there was another person in the House of the Holy Sword. Maybe this is not the most important mention, but that day there was a small child of 2 hunters there. Meanwhile, Lee was at home and had no idea that the investigation into this case was ongoing. He looked at the amnesia stone and tried to understand how he could use this item in the future. When you use amnesia, your physical characteristics increase several times, but there are also side effects of using it. This stone erases your memories a year from the moment you use it, and this can become a serious problem. Lee received an artifact for clearing the Tomb of Forgotten Warriors, but is unlikely to use the item in the future. Soon, Kira approached him and suggested going for a walk, which might help him take a mental break from cleaning the dungeons. They both worked hard, trained, and destroyed monsters, so they deserved a break. Kira has also noticed changes in her daughter's behavior, but she also wants to discuss this with Lee. It seems like the daughter constantly wants more attention from her parents and is also becoming more and more capricious. Although she doesn't show it, it seems like she's very lonely and needs more communication with her family. Lee tried to do everything he could for his daughter, but he completely forgot to look at it all through her eyes. They agreed to go for a walk with the three insects, but the weather ruined all their plans. The mother tried to explain to her daughter that they had planned to go for a walk together, but they couldn't leave the house because of the rain. This made little Sora very angry. The girl went to the window and looked angrily at the street. After that, her eyes began to glow with blue energy, and the girl loudly ordered the rain to stop. It was like a flash of bright light at a power plant, but it was only a 5-year-old girl. At this point, William Taylor did not give up hope of finding out the interesting details that worried him. He worked even in bad weather and asked about the house where Kira and Sora used to live. He learned that this house was suddenly destroyed, but he was not told anything interesting. His first suspects were Lee and Kira, but their mana levels were too low, just like Darren and Sehun. He remembered that their daughter Sora was with them, but this ribbon-clad girl was too small to cause such a release of energy. He looked at the sky and thought that even the weather had decided to be against him today. At that moment, an explosion occurred in the sky, and within a few seconds, all the clouds were destroyed, and a bright and warm sun began to shine on the city. He had never seen such a rapid and drastic change in weather conditions in his life. There was no doubt that this was some kind of witchcraft. In the young hunter's house, everyone was also shocked by what happened. We didn't know that their daughter was talented, but we didn't realize how talented she was. Now she is sure that they can go for a walk. Apparently, she did all this deliberately. Sora looks energetic now, unlike the time she created the ice bear. Although she is their daughter, her incredible strength begins to scare her parents. This explosion of mana was enormous, and if William Taylor was still in the country, he would have certainly felt it. We needed to create an alibi for ourselves on the street very quickly, so the decision was made to immediately go for a walk. Soon they were enjoying the wonderful weather with their family. On days like these, this family feels true happiness. They went to the zoo because Sora had never been there before. Soon, the father asked his daughter to stand next to her mother so he could take a picture of them. It will be very pleasant to look at all these happy photos in 20 or even 30 years, because then they will become especially relevant. Lee can't pass up the chance to take pictures of his favorite girls. He does it to enjoy the photos in the future. He also asked to take some photos with his daughter so he could carry the photo with him in his pocket. When Sora saw that she had grown a horn in the photo, she almost cried, but her father quickly calmed her down. He explained that he was just joking and reminded her that the girl should learn to understand jokes. After that, little Sora asked to be given the phone so she could take a picture of her parents. She acted very confidently and immediately ordered them to stand as close to each other as possible. The father immediately seized the moment and realized that this was his chance to get even closer to Cyrus. They were both a little embarrassed, but in any case, it seemed like they wanted it, even if they didn't consciously show their intentions. Sora was pleased. She is always happy when her parents are happy, because before that didn't happen often. After that, they went to explore the zoo and look at various exotic animals. The parents showed their daughter various colorful birds and giraffes. It was the first time she had seen such strange creatures. It is impossible to imagine a zoo without tigers or lions. These animals always attract the most attention from the public. Kira was happy. She laughed all the time and said that she wanted to grow up and buy herself a zoo. Lee felt strange emotions. He was happy, but at the same time, he couldn't believe that today was really the day when they were spending time together so happily. He made a lot of mistakes in the past, and now all of those mistakes are still deep in his soul. It feels like they are truly a family, and now he can enjoy these moments for the first time. Soon they asked other people to take a family photo, and took a photo of the three of them. After a hard and eventful day, they returned home for a well-deserved rest. They had been walking for too long today. Sora was so tired that she fell asleep in her father's arms. They were already approaching the door of their house and suddenly saw a familiar person standing at the door. William Taylor has come to visit them again, and today he wants to talk about their little daughter. Sooner or later, this moment had to come. Because this wizard worked like a real Sherlock Holmes, it was almost impossible to hide the truth from him. They entered the house and put their daughter to bed, then went into the living room to talk. The parents went out to the guest and heard that he was investigating a new case involving abnormal weather changes in this area of the city. He witnessed how the rain clouds dispersed too quickly and the weather changed in a matter of seconds. Of course, mana can be hidden. A true professional in witchcraft will do it without even thinking. He couldn't find anything because he was only looking with his eyes. But by touching Sora, he won't miss his chance and learn the truth. William explained that this case has similar characteristics to past events. A huge explosion of mana was recorded, and once again a young family of hunters was at the epicenter of the event. He hoped that now the inexperienced soldiers would admit that they had something to do with this. But he wouldn't wait for that. Lee replied that all this could be related to cracks. Perhaps the anomalies and cracks are somehow connected. William Taylor immediately objected and said that several months had passed, and the consequences did not appear after that amount of time. He immediately felt that he had an interesting character in front of him, because despite the whole situation, Lee was not at all worried. He is absolutely calm and does not tremble with fear. It seems that he really has nothing to do with all these events. The sorcerer decided to come in from the other side and talk about the house that was destroyed a few months ago. He knows this story, but only recently learned that little Sora was also there. He sensed his mother's anxiety and said he was worried because all this could lead to serious consequences. Their daughter could have found some lost artifact and used it, so it was best to take this item from Sora immediately. He didn't ask permission and immediately entered the nursery where Sora was sleeping. The man activated some unknown spell and said in a quiet voice that he would check on her now. It was at this moment that the father of the family intervened. He grabbed the sorcerer by the hand and ordered him to stop immediately. William Taylor did not lose his moral balance. He said that this was too aggressive a reaction and asked to let go of his hand. Lee replied that he was the only one in this house asking questions, and he wanted to understand why this man was so interested in his little daughter. I had to explain to the young parents that William suspected that their daughter might be a witch. Of course, they said that this was all nonsense and that a 5-year-old child could not release such a charge of mana. It was even physically impossible. It turned out that such cases had already happened because the wizard from the tower was also capable of such things in his childhood. An interesting observation. Little Sora is now being compared to one of the greatest wizards of all time. Taylor promised to apologize if he was proven wrong, but now asks for the cooperation and assistance of the Wizarding Association. I had to remind this impudent man that a small child has nothing to do with the association. She is not obliged to follow the rules. The air in this room was immediately saturated with some unpleasant aura. This conflict could no longer be stopped. Tomorrow, the representative of the Wizard's Tower must return to Britain. He has no time for official procedures. He must act. That's why he imprisoned his parents and asked them to calm down, and promised not to do anything bad to them. As soon as he touched little Sora's head with his hand, he immediately felt something absolutely incredible. It was as if he found himself in the center of a city, which was being hit by a huge tsunami from the Pacific Ocean. He immediately pulled his hand back as if it had been burned by something hot. He had never felt anything like it before. At this moment, his containment spell weakened because it took away the necessary energy to test little Sora. He wanted to fully explore her, and thus gave Lee the opportunity to break free from the energy chains and attack him. William managed to turn around and ordered Lee to immediately stop and calm down. He explained that their daughter was not a little child at all, but a real monster who could destroy the entire world. Nothing like this should exist because one day it could lead to serious problems. Simply put, he believes Sora is a witch. At that moment, Lee remembered everything that had happened in his past life. How much his daughter had influenced that world. Then he also heard many times that she was a witch and that she should be destroyed immediately. But he didn't want to do it. Now history is repeating itself. He said that he would still take care of her and would not let anyone hurt Sora. She is not a monster, but his beloved daughter. He said this with tears in his eyes. And without even realizing it, he won an Oscar for Best Father. William Taylor again asked him to calm down and asked him to hand him the phone that was lying behind him. He explained that this child could make an incredible contribution to the development of magic and improve the world. It's immediately obvious that he wants to steal her to his tower. That's exactly what he did in a past life. This man can't be trusted. He must have forgotten something while talking to the father of the family. You can never write off an angry mother. Kira took her opportunity and hit the sorcerer hard on the head. A perfect headshot. Lee ordered Cyrus to take his daughter and flee immediately, while he tried to apprehend William Taylor. Kira obeyed and did everything he ordered her to do. At this moment, there was no time for conversation. We had to act, and act quickly. Lee hoped to delay this terrible scoundrel as much as possible, but the difference in their levels was too great. He had to demonstrate his entire arsenal of martial arts to the team in order to somehow stop the child abductor. As soon as he got the chance, he immediately picked up a weapon with which it is easier to defend against witchcraft. William is sure that this will not help him. He has only bought time for his daughter, but she will still go to the wizard's tower. It is always difficult for an ordinary person to fight a sorcerer, because instead of demonstrating their physical strength, sorcerers win with the power of thought. They just need to raise their hand and they win, which is probably why they are so valued in the ministry. Only experienced warriors know the weaknesses of sorcerers. They know that sorcerers need to constantly keep their distance. It is much easier for them to aim from a distance, and they also have more time to prepare. Lee analyzed his opponent perfectly and realized that at a long distance he would be an easy target, so he approached and delivered a decisive blow. It seemed to him that the matter was resolved. He had won, and everything would soon be fine. But the sorcerer turned out to be too cunning. William Taylor admitted that he fought a very interesting character with incredible abilities. It is dangerous to leave such a strong warrior alive, so the insects want to take his soul with them. If the young warrior Daeho had been in Lee's place, he would have undoubtedly defeated this sorcerer with his bare hands. In this difficult and tense moment, Lee remembered that he had a way to activate his hidden abilities. He absorbed all the souls that were in his ring and received an incredible boost in his physical abilities and mana reserve. After that, he delivered a powerful blow to his opponent and left him no chance. It seemed as if he had turned into the Hulk for a second, because this blow could only be compared to this comic book hero. When William lost consciousness, he had a strange dream, as if the tsunami was covering him with its head again. He tried to escape but couldn't, and soon found himself deep under the icy water. A few hours later, morning came and the sun shone on his face. He woke up and saw an oil man in front of him, trying to understand how his British comrade was feeling. William Taylor couldn't understand where he was or who he was. That's what happens when you hit your head hard. Lee smiled and thought that the stone had worked perfectly. Now he needed to remind the British wizard of what had happened. 10 hours ago, he hit William hard, and because of this the wizard lost consciousness. The power of the ring left the boy, and he returned to his normal state. Now he needed to figure out what to do with this sorcerer, because he was not at all inclined to negotiate. As soon as all this information reaches the wizard's tower, their family will start having serious problems. He can't afford to lose his daughter again, so as soon as he saw William regain consciousness, he decided to kill him. This scoundrel tried to kidnap his own daughter, so if he was killed and his body thrown into the river, no one would know about it. After a few minutes, he realized that he couldn't do that he wasn't capable of killing a person without a weapon. As soon as a famous person disappears, a full-scale investigation will immediately begin, and they will be found very quickly. At this moment, he remembered that time cannot be turned back, but he has an artifact that can help erase unnecessary memories. He can make this terrible sorcerer forget about everything related to little Sora's family. Now that William had woken up, Lee told him a very different story of the last days of his life. William Taylor came to Korea to investigate the faults, bought an artifact from Lee, and immediately went crazy as soon as he used the item. Lee explained that he had no choice but to render his guest unconscious. The owner of the house apologized to the sorcerer and said that all these problems were because of him. He warned William Taylor not to use the artifact, but he didn't listen. William said that he should apologize for what he had done in this apartment and promised to pay for all this mess. Soon, Lee said goodbye to the guest and put him in a taxi to the airport. Finally, it's all over. This bad story could have led to disaster, but all the bad is behind us. He was very lucky that he didn't throw away the amnesia stone and used it at the right moment. The system reported that little Sora's first misfortune had been stopped, and the special quest would continue. Lee began to rejoice, but the system notified him that some of his daughter's memories would also be absorbed, which was not good at all. Meanwhile, little Sora opened her eyes and realized that she woke up not exactly in her room. She began to panic and thought she had been kidnapped from her home and brought to this horrible place. The prison doors opened and two men in dark suits entered. The girl woke up earlier than they expected, so it was decided to call the head of the department. The men could not believe that such a young lady had the incredible power of a sorcerer. They had never seen anything like it before. At that moment, the little girl remembered how she had promised her mother not to show her strength to anyone. Her father also constantly told her that she shouldn't show off her talents to other people, as this could lead to serious problems. Now she realized that everything that happened was entirely her fault. Her jokes with magic had ended badly. The sorcerers decided to calm the girl and put her to sleep with the help of magic. Then they started talking about how her mother was already dead and her father was unlikely to be a threat. Little Sora heard all these conversations and tears appeared in her eyes from understanding what was happening. She began to suspect that her father was being planned to be killed, and her heart began to groan with moral anguish. They looked at the little child and realized that she was not affected by the sleeping spell at all. They thought this spell would last her a week, but now they realized they were dealing with a completely different level of witchcraft. She quickly demonstrated to these two men why she was so important to the future of the world. This girl is not going to play games anymore. Even despite her age, she wants to know where she is. Another man tried to stop her with a double sleep spell, but it had no effect on her well-being at all. It turned out that she knows how to use not only ice energy, but also has excellent control over the power of fire. If they don't tell her where she is now, this whole building will explode at her will. It doesn't look like she's bluffing at all, so she was told she was in a wizard's tower in Britain. It was at this moment that the doors of this prison opened and William Taylor entered. He did not expect the young lady to wake up so quickly and immediately assured her that they did not wish her any harm. If she wants something, she can ask right away, and he will fulfill her every wish. The girl said she wanted to go back to her dad, so William Taylor pretended to call her father too. He gave her a phone so she could talk to her father, but it turned out to be another of the sorcerer's insidious plans. The phone exploded with some inexplicable energy and affected the little girl. Within seconds, she lost consciousness and fell to the floor. They were very lucky that she was just a naive child now. This child poses a threat, so he needs to be checked periodically and security doubled. If this creature wakes up, everyone around will be in danger, so it must be kept deep underground behind thick walls. Little Sora only wanted one thing, for her father to come and save her from these people. It turned out that these were just memories that were absorbed due to the successful completion of the task. All of this could have happened in the future, but through her father's efforts, that future was changed. The system accelerated the flow of events to future important situations. Lee looked agitated. He didn't quite understand what had happened and what to do next. He is concerned that he not only looked at Sora's memories, but also absorbed them. It is unclear what this could mean. Then the system reported an acceleration. The fact that he returned to the past is already considered incredible. Now he feels that even stranger things are happening. Although the most important thing is that he was able to stop his daughter's first misfortune. There are 4 more calamities left, but it is unknown what they are. We can only guess that the future calamity is connected with the death of Cyrus. If he can't do anything, this woman's life will be cut short again. In order to stop all these misfortunes, you need to become stronger at any cost. Soon he met with Hiram. The girl said she wanted to discuss some work processes. She suggested that he create his own guild, and even said that she was ready to support him in this endeavor and give him the first capital. She can also give him control of some dungeons so that he knows what to do. It seemed like Lee had hit the jackpot, as he would be able to receive a reward for clearing his own dungeons. This offer is too generous. He feels that something is wrong here. Maybe she wants to take advantage of him for her own benefit. The girl replied that she would become a member of this guild. At the moment, she could not be a full-fledged hunter, and she was starting to have problems with her father. Her father forbids her from working after that injury while clearing the dungeon, so she needs a cover guild. She will join this guild and become an official hunter and will be able to go to dungeons despite her father's prohibition. She doesn't really want to ruin her relationship with him and is even more sure that Lee shouldn't worry about it. If something goes wrong, he can disband the guild and receive compensation from it. There must be at least 5 people in a guild, including the leader. So with Lee and Hiram, there are still 3 free spots left. It was decided to give it a try, especially considering that they had ideal candidates to form a team. They've already fought together when clearing the Forgotten Warriors dungeon, so it would be ideal to form a team with all of these participants. A week passed after this conversation. The Ghost Guild was formed, and Lee became its leader. All the papers are ready and now the guild is officially registered. There were no problems with the documents. As soon as the guy left the Hunters Association building, an unknown car immediately drove up to him. In this car sat Kasu. This is Hiram's famous father, as well as the boss of the high-tech corporation. He had already heard that Lee had decided to form a guild and decided to meet him for a little chat. He came to ask the guy to remove Hiram from the list of members of the Ghost Guild, but Lee is not going to do that. Hasu explained that this was an unusual request, and he was willing to offer to sponsor the guild. The high-tech conglomerate plans to sponsor the guild and is ready to invest generously in the development of young hunters. Hasu understands that this guy saved his daughter in the past, so he wants to establish a positive connection with him. Now Lee faces a difficult choice. Although Hiram is the gifted daughter of an oligarch, She cannot be compared to a large-scale high-tech company. This huge corporation will give him the best conditions in the world, and all of these conditions will lead to opportunities. He had no reason to refuse, but nevertheless he decided to thank him for the offer and decline. It's hard to find logic in this. Kasu also didn't understand anything and tried to understand the reason for this refusal. Lee was explained that if he accepted this offer, he would indeed receive many opportunities, but that was not the main thing. He understands that for Kasu this is just a way to control his daughter, and he doesn't need anything else. If we look at this situation from another perspective and accept Hiram's offer, we can get more out of this alliance. Refusing seems like a stupid decision, but it's an opportunity to improve relations with Hiram, and in the long run, it's more beneficial. Hasu explained that if Lee refused his offer, he would gain a new enemy. It's dangerous to have such a powerful and serious enemy, but Lee is confident that Hiram will help him avoid trouble. He is sure that this girl always keeps her word and will help him in difficult times. Realizing that success is impossible, she will not take on the task of changing everything. When Lee first met her, in a past life, she made an incredible impression on him, even if it's hard to believe now. Hasu is willing to allow this guild to exist and give his daughter the opportunity to do the dirty work, but only on one condition. If you're going to create a guild, everything has to be real. That's what Kasu said, and now Hiram knows about it. She can be a hunter as long as she is a member of this guild, but the girl did not expect that the guild should be real. This means that there will be a lot of work to do to clear a huge number of dungeons, but surprisingly, Lee is up for it. Let's move to Athens, Greece. At this very moment, a new rift arose there. Very quickly, the city was filled with huge monsters with wings and horns, looking like gargoyles from hell. These monsters began to attack not only ordinary people, but also small children. When they destroy buildings and set cars on fire, it doesn't even come close to attacking the little flowers of life. It turned out that in any corner of the world there are people who are ready to come to the rescue in difficult times. Somewhere they are called hunters, somewhere knights, but their essence does not change because in any case they are superheroes of humanity. If these people were not in the world, clouds would have filled the sky long ago. But fortunately for ordinary people, there is still a ray of hope in the world. People began to thank the hero and call this woman the pride of Athens. It was not the first time she had saved their lives. Although she is no longer young, she is a true legend of Greece, a master of the sword, Sophia Lembedou. She left the battlefield without serious injuries, although the armor this time proved too heavy. And the assistant told about the unexpected call from Korea. Sophia thought it was related to the holy sword. And they told me that this wasn't entirely true, because they were calling from a high-tech corporation, and it seemed that Lee had gone too far. It was too late for him to back down, so he decided to talk to Sophia in person and do what he wanted. She thought he was calling to invite her to join his guild. It turned out that the situation was completely different, because Lee called about the dungeon that Sophia was hiding from the whole world. Of course, she pretended not to understand what he was talking about, but he reminded her of the dungeons of the Acropolis in Athens. The guy said that he knows that this dungeon is a learning tower. He is sure that Sophia has no choice but to accept his offer. After a few minutes of conversation, she was forced to agree to meet and discuss the issue face to face. Thus, the decision was made to immediately fly to Greece. Lee came to the guild and invited all his team members to fly with him. They didn't understand what he was going to do, but they were forced to keep him company. To begin with, he must explain what he decided to do and why Sophia invited them to Greece. First, Lee made sure everyone knew about this female knight and her famous guild called the Knights Order. It turned out that even the famous hunter Seihin created a Knights Guild to be like Sophia. Although the guild of the Knightly Order is not very large, it has enough weight to influence what is happening in the country. The question immediately arises as to where there are so many outstanding hunters in this guild. It seems logical that the strongest hunters always want to work in the best guild. But in this matter, not everything is so simple. Once hunters join the Knightly Order, they begin to develop incredibly quickly, and this is not thanks to training. Also, hunters can't improve their skills with elixirs alone, so that's not the answer either. In fact, there is a hidden dungeon associated with this guild. As soon as a person enters this dungeon, they will immediately receive experience points. This makes it clear why the Sophia Guild is so powerful. Just entering this dungeon makes you several times stronger. Sophia very quickly understood this life hack and began to use it to her own advantage. Now Lee wants to use this dungeon to improve his team's skills, as well as his own stats. He learned about this dungeon in a past life, and now it was time to take advantage of it. The daughter's second misfortune is the death of her mother, and everything possible must be done to make Kira stronger and stay alive. Lee is unlikely to be able to go through all the trials alone. He will need the help of loved ones. Just because he's a strong rookie doesn't mean he can beat the strongest people in the world. He can't afford to waste time and he doesn't want to feel worthless. His friends said they were ready to help despite all the dangers that would await them in this dungeon. None of them want to miss the opportunity to become stronger, so the decision was made unanimously. A few days later, they found themselves at the international airport in Athens, Greece. Everyone was excited and looking forward to future adventures. The most interesting things would be waiting for them ahead. Soon, some team members learned that Darren had changed her guild, as she was previously a member of the Holy Sword House. No one expected to find out that she was really the granddaughter of the legendary master. When she said she wanted to become a member of his guild, he immediately refused. In his opinion, if she really wants to follow the traditions of her predecessors, she should stand on her own 2 feet without the help of her grandfather. He wanted her to become a hunter on her own and choose her own path. It turned out that a representative of Lady Sophia would meet them at this airport. Lee was very surprised to see that a real celebrity had come to meet her. This guy's name is Alex Zorba. He is an active guild hunter and also Sophia's right-hand man. This guy faithfully followed Sophia until the very end in his past insect life, and now came to meet the Spectrum Guild. Lee greeted him and said that he was the leader of this guild, and they agreed to get to know each other better on the way to Sophia. So far, Alex doesn't see anything special in Lee, although he expected much more from him. He doesn't understand why Sophia suggested these newcomers come to Greece. Maybe in the future, everything will become more obvious. Darren was incredibly surprised when she saw how beautiful this city is. She already likes it here. Alex suggested she visit Santorini. The architecture of this island is a true work of art. Soon the cars ahead stopped. The hunters got scared because they thought something bad was happening. Hiram reassured her friends and explained that Athens is known for its terrible traffic jams, especially in the city center. Alex explained that they were in no hurry. He smiled and said that he would soon take them to a restaurant for lunch. He also made it clear that he is very happy to spend time with such beautiful girls and hopes to find himself a bride. Hiram said she was married to her job, and Darren was married to her sword. Now it's time for Kira to answer whether she's single or ready to enter a new relationship. Darren intervened in the conversation. She made a remark to Alex and said that you can't flirt with a girl in front of her husband. He immediately apologized to the guild boss for his behavior. Darren was pleased with his actions, as usual. Alex immediately suggested that the couple go on a trip to Greece after they finish their work, because Greece is the perfect place for a honeymoon. Even now, Lee couldn't stop thinking about his daughter. He thought it would be ideal to take Sora with him next time. Meanwhile, their little princess spent time with her grandfather. She's not in the best mood today, says she doesn't like ice cream and misses her parents, but that she also loves her grandfather, and thereby made him love her even more. A small dark kitten approached them and Sora asked her grandfather to let her play with the animal. Grandpa said he would go to the store for a while to buy some wet wipes, and in the meantime, Sora could enjoy the games. As soon as the grandfather left, this cat started talking to the child and told her not to touch its tail because it was very sensitive. The parents didn't yet know that their daughter could talk to animals. They had their own business to attend to. They had just arrived at the central building of the Knights Guild and were amazed by the architecture. This can be called the true residence of a national hero. Every hunter dreams of such an estate. Alex said that they had prepared rooms for their guests and asked them to feel at home. After that, he called Lee and said that Lady Sophia wanted to talk to him in her office. He warned the boy in advance that he could not allow himself even a hint of disrespect for the greatest hero of Greece. Soon they entered the main office of the estate, and Sophia greeted her guest. As a true gentleman, Lee said that he was honored to be invited to this estate. Sophia asked her assistant to leave her alone with the guest so they could have an intimate dialogue. As soon as they were left alone, Sophia immediately showed her aura. Any mistake on Lee's part could lead to his death. He felt his blood pressure rise and his heart start beating at double speed. Now he had to be very careful with his words. He decided to get straight to the point and said he knew how to kill the boss of the training tower. At that moment, Sophia took out her sword and started acting crazy. Maybe this grandmother was too old for such conversations. If she forgot to take her pills to calm her nerves, then a real massacre could begin here now. Lee understood that they were negotiating and he should not be afraid of his interlocutor. He decided from the very beginning to show that he was not afraid of death. Sophia decided to let him talk and tried to find out how he found out about her curse. The guy explained that he had already seen a person with such a problem, and there were only 2 ways to get rid of the curse. We must kill the person who cast this spell, or force him to reverse it. Sophia is sure that even if Lee knows how to kill the boss, nothing will come of it, because his abilities are not enough. In the Hunter's Tower, you can really become much stronger in a short period of time, but it still depends on luck. If they are lucky enough to quickly improve their skills, they will still not be able to gain experience. To Sophia, this guy is just a cocky kid who only recently got his license. Lee said that he was ready to demonstrate his level in any way, and was even ready for a personal duel. He is ready to fight any member of her guild and show what he is capable of, like a real man. Without thinking twice, Sophia ordered Alex to take up his weapon and prepare for a duel. He said he would try to restrain himself and not kill the guest, but he couldn't promise that. He doesn't like Lee. He thinks this guy is too self-confident and is now ready to punish him for it. After their duel, Leah must understand that life is a cruel game that does not forgive mistakes. The duel was soon started. Alex should have the advantage in close combat due to his weapon. He immediately ran to close the distance and easily dodged Lee's first attack. It turned out that everything was not so simple. The guy from Korea managed to deliver another blow and push his opponent away. So far, he has perfect distance control with his long spear and shows great balance. Although Lee seems like just an ordinary rookie at first glance, appearances can sometimes be deceiving. This made Alex angry. He doesn't want to play games anymore, especially in front of Sophia. He wanted to demonstrate all his power and tear the newcomer to pieces, but his plan failed. Lee threw the spear to the floor and with his bare hands was able to stop the attack of the experienced Greek hunter. He won this duel in less than 35 seconds, and that's a great result. Sophia watched silently with wide eyes. Needless to say, she was shocked. Such an easy victory over a hunter with experience clearing more than 100 dungeons makes you respect the guest from Korea. Sophia apologized to Lee and said she was wrong about his abilities. She is no longer going to underestimate him and believes that perhaps he can really defeat the tower boss. The woman gave him permission to enter the tower for training, and the next morning their team prepared for this challenge. There were a lot of people around. The Spectrum Guild would go to the tower with a support group. This tower is different from other dungeons. Only 20 people can enter it each month. It was noticeable that Alex was incredibly angry at the Korean guests, especially their leader, for obvious reasons. Soon they were told that the tower was opposite them. This was the upper city of Athens, the Acropolis. They decided to meet at the tower and saw incredibly beautiful places and architectural monuments. Around you can see real works of art, such as the Parthenon, the Colosseum, and the amphitheater. All members of the Spectrum team tried to distract themselves from the excitement, while Alex barely restrained his aggression towards Lee. Their duel angered Sophia's right hand so much that he will remember this fight for a long time. Soon they reached a staircase leading deep underground. It's strange that the tower is underground. Usually when you hear that name you expect a trip up the mountain. The entrance to the dungeon is behind a wall. Only a person who has been here before will be able to get inside. The entrance to the dungeon opens once a month at a specific time. Hiram thought Alex had lost his mind, but this is a special dungeon, so the entrance might be special. A few seconds later, the entrance to the training tower dungeon was opened, and the hunters prepared for teleportation. Alex warned that there might be some discomfort, but it wouldn't last long. Before the end of the world, the monsters that emerged from the rifts became more and more numerous, multiplying and gaining strength. Hunters, on the other hand, became fewer and fewer every day. They were constantly being exterminated like livestock on a farm. Only when there were no more people who could hold back the onslaught of monsters did a voice come from the sky. Its source turned out to be a personal system, and thanks to it, everything in the world changed. The personal system assigned classes and gave monster hunters the right skills. The system gave the most strength to true masters of their craft, who perfectly mastered all the subtleties of martial arts. The higher the rarity of the class, the greater the power. But our protagonist has a completely unusual story. After updating the alpha tester's personal system, Lee woke up in an unexplored dungeon. He is now on the first floor of the learning tower, in a dungeon. The guy thought something had happened to the system, but he couldn't figure out what exactly. It seems like he hit the hardest part of the tower and now he might have problems. The tower teleports everyone to a random location, and they all have to reach the second floor using only their own strength. A training quest was created and Lee received the same class as in his past life, a Spearman. He hoped the butterfly effect would work in reverse, but no such luck. The Spearman is a regular class. As the name suggests, such classes are assigned to guide a person on the right path. The class also makes it clear the limits of his progress, which is why he was such a weak hunter in his past life. Before he went back in time, his daughter belonged to the witch class, a very powerful and influential class. Class can influence the future direction of life, so a lot depends on it. Now Lee has to change his daughter's class, which is why he came to the training tower, because the reward for clearing it is a class change card. Once you receive it, you can only use this item once, so he can't let this chance slip through his hands. The father really wants his daughter to grow up to be a normal girl, not a witch. His first quest will be to try to escape this dungeon. The door at the end of the corridor is locked, so in order to escape, you will have to find the key. It seems that there is no one in these suits of armor. They do not move and do not show any signs of life. The guards usually always have keys with them. And as soon as Lee tried to take these keys, he realized that in fact, he was not alone in this room at all. You will have to take up arms again and start fighting, otherwise you will not get out of the dungeon. He understood that adventures would soon await him, and was not surprised that he met strong monsters from the very beginning. There are quite a few guys in armor. You will have to spend a lot of effort to defeat them all. They are all well armed and prepared for any battle, so this task is not for beginners. He told the guards that he wanted a second chance, but as mentioned earlier, life is a game that does not forgive mistakes. He had to demonstrate all his talents to defeat this small army, for which Lee received 150 experience points. Also, his king's ring absorbed the souls of monsters, and now he can safely leave the dungeon. When the door opened, he saw a huge monster in front of him, probably the boss of this place. Unlike other guards, his weak points are hidden by armor, and he even has a shield for protection. Our hero also immediately noticed a strange pouch on the boss's belt, giving the impression that something very important was lying there. There is no time to think and analyze the situation, because the attack is first, so you have to act quickly and uncompromisingly. Like all huge dungeon monsters, this boss turned out to be quite fast, although it doesn't seem very logical. He has no chance in an open-style battle, so it's better to keep a long distance and think about your strategy. Because he kept repeating that all criminals should be in prison, he seemed like a crazy moral righteous man. You have to constantly change your trajectory in order to behave unpredictably. That's the only way to survive in a battle with this boar. Now, Lee is fighting with a big fan of punishing criminals. It will be very difficult to come to an agreement here without the use of physical force. Soon the guy found the perfect moment to attack and tried to somehow harm the boss. He hit a weak spot and forced the monster to fall to the ground, so all of this boss's power is in its legs. Now he will not be as fast as before, but he can still use his shield as a boomerang. Lee thought that he could use the attraction skill. This technique helps increase the power of the spear at the expense of its owner. It's certainly a technique just like his class, but right now he has no choice but to hope it works. He did his best to attack the monster with his weapon. The result was much better than expected. The system reported that he had defeated the dungeon boss and earned a large amount of experience points. The king's ring had absorbed the soul of the defeated warrior and now absorbed even more energy. Let's forget about the dungeons of the Learning Tower for a while and return to the city of Seoul, Korea. Sora really wants to keep this little kitty, but she'll have to ask her parents for permission to do so. 2 hours ago, she spoke to animals for the first time. It was a truly amazing experience. She thought animals shouldn't talk, but the cat said she was special. She asked Sora to help her and hide her in a safe place for a while. There are bad people nearby who want to take her, so she needs help. The cat said that she was also special, just like Sora, and they could be true friends. The little cat knows that the girl can also see Mana, despite the fact that it is Sora's secret. They agreed not to tell anyone their secrets and to hide their friendship. It was a vow between a little girl and a cat. In other words, the beginning of a strong friendship. As soon as Grandpa left the room, the friends' conversation immediately continued. The cat promised to teach her friend something useful. They will be able to communicate using thoughts. It's called telepathy. It's not as difficult as it seems. You just need to try to say something in your mind and try to convey this information to your friend. Soon they succeeded and began to train and improve their skills. The cat said that she could teach Sora a lot because the girl was special and deserved to learn special techniques. There are different levels of skill mastery, and all of these skills are divided into 6 levels, their strength depending on the level. At first glance, the lunge skill may seem quite simple without any particular advantages, but you can improve the level of this technique. To do this, you need to train constantly and with focus, and then your results will improve. At first, the technique will be at a lower level, but if you continue training, the level will rise. Once a hunter learns to apply the skill in practice, he will reach a completely new level of training. After several years of active training, the technique can be improved to a good level. When a hunter accumulates more knowledge about this technique and learns to apply it in different situations, he will rise to an excellent level. Finally, when he defeats his opponent with just this technique, his skill will reach the level of a master. Sometimes situations occur in Lee's mind when his past life meets his current one. He is always very demanding of himself and constantly wants to raise his level and become stronger. You can't be too weak. You have to constantly progress and improve your skills. If he really wants to become stronger, he must constantly try to catch up with talented competitors. To do this, You need to perfect your lunge technique, and perhaps today he succeeded. After an energy overload, he lost consciousness and woke up only half an hour later. The master level is hidden beyond the standards set by the system. A small number of hunters were able to approach the summit, and only Lee was able to go that far. After returning to the past, his physical abilities returned to their original form, and therefore he did not expect to make much progress. But every day he becomes stronger and his new life never ceases to amaze him. He saw a door that was not locked and decided to take a confident step forward into the unknown. The system informed him that the training quest was over, and now he had moved to the second floor of the tower, to the garden. Now he has a new goal. He must immediately go in search of a safe place. If we talk about this garden, we must immediately say that it is more like a jungle. After a long day, he was very tired, so he decided to drink some water and rest. He spent the whole day looking for a safe place, but he couldn't find anything. He only has a little bit of night food left for emergencies, but he is already feeling incredibly hungry. It was only after how many hours that he finally reached a safe place and completed his quest. As soon as he opened the door of the house and went inside, he immediately received 100 points. Inside, he saw a small bear who congratulated him on successfully completing the quest. The bear was surprised because Lee was the first person to greet him and say his name. This bear also said that his name is number 23. To find out why he is called that, you need to spend 50 million points. Of course, no one is going to spend such a large balance to find out the secret of his name. The bear said that in this house you can buy everything you need to survive. The prices here are incredibly high. The bear understands that there are no other stores nearby, so he takes advantage of this and inflates the prices. Lee said he wanted to buy information. He wanted to know all the possible ways to earn points in this dungeon. It turned out that he didn't have enough points to answer this question, so he had to come up with something else. He asked how to earn points most efficiently, and even now his balance is not enough to find out the answer. This stupid bear is already starting to piss off our main character. No one likes manipulative businessmen, especially if they are bears. Soon the bear decided to give his guest a discount because he was the first to greet him upon meeting him. On the way to safety, Lee ate some dangerous mushrooms and almost died from poisoning. Now he feels better and can safely eat the food he had been saving for emergencies. After sufficient rest, he decided to continue his journey into the dungeon. The bear arranged to meet Lee on the 4th floor, after which they said goodbye. Soon a hunter entered the house and asked who had been here before him. Meanwhile, Lee continued his training quest. Now he must reach the 3rd floor of the training tower. Each stage has its own mini-boss, and at this stage you will have to face the challenge again. It also became known that you don't have to fight the boss and try to win. You can go up to the next floor without a fight. If you still decide to fight and win, you'll get extra points, so that's a nice bonus. Of course, if the hunter is too tired, he can avoid the battle and continue his journey peacefully. The bear said that we should go west. The main thing is to feel the danger and avoid it. As you approach the boss, the atmosphere around you will begin to change very quickly. You will have to notice these changes. After several hours of searching, Lee saw an owl in front of him, which turned out to be a real monster. He had to kill her immediately, otherwise that owl would have torn his head off. It seems like the atmosphere has completely changed, so the danger zone begins here. We haven't seen what's happening with the other members of the Spectrum Guild for a long time. Kira also woke up in an unknown place. She felt as if she was paralyzed and had no control over her body at all. A monster appeared next to her, but she could not move or defend herself. This female voice approached her and asked her to calm down and wait until the system corrected the error. This unknown person was trying to figure out if Kira was a member of the Knights Guild. Soon she gave her name. Her name was Elizabeth. She assured that she had come to help Cyrus. Meanwhile, Lee continued his journey and waited to meet with the boss of this floor. At this stage, it's not easy. Monsters are attacking from all sides, and it's impossible to replenish supplies. Not everyone can withstand such pressure. Soon he saw that there was a fire somewhere nearby, and he went towards the light. Approaching this place, he saw a huge living tree. Such creatures were called Ents in ancient times. This monster immediately raised its head and ordered the wooden vines to grab the unexpected guest. There's no doubt that this is all magic, and monsters that possess magic are always harder to fight. After a few minutes, the monster disappeared somewhere, and its vines stopped trying to strangle Lee. When it seemed that the boy was safe, the monster approached from the other side, like a real insidious predator. Now it becomes clear that Lee has faced a real professional in killing people, and winning this battle will not be easy. The monster uses its magical powers to avoid danger and trap its prey. Lee was very lucky to have a double reaction. Any other person would have already been dead after this attack. The hunter not only managed to defend himself from the monster's attack, but also immediately launched a counterattack. It's not very safe to use a spear in such thickets. The monster understands this and therefore continues to use magic. Finally, this horrible creature started to speak. Probably he also wants to take Lee's ring. It seems that it is precisely because of this object on the boy's hand that the monster sometimes stops and does not try to kill him. The moment came when it seemed that there was no way to block a new blow. Lee had already said goodbye to life. A tear even appeared on his face. He was upset that he would not be able to help his daughter change her future. It was at this critical moment that a hero with strong arms appeared from nowhere. Everyone probably already guessed that this hero's name was Daeho. With the help of his incredible strength, he was able to hit the monster and make it forget about attacking his friend. That's probably why this hunter was taken into the Spectrum Guild. You always need to have someone with big muscles on the team. Let's go back to Cyrus. At this moment, she is talking to a woman named Elizabeth. She said that she could not influence Cyrus's physical condition, but that her paralysis would soon be lifted. She touched Cyrus's head, and then said that she had to return immediately. The system error has been fixed. The personal data update has been completed, and now Kira can use her body. This was very good news. But her mood immediately deteriorated because she saw a huge number of monsters around her. The system reported that the training quest had begun, and now she would have to go through all the tests on her own. Lee was a little luckier. He has already met a partner and now feels friendly support. Daeho paid the rabbit in the vault for the information, and that's how he got here. The guys decided to team up and destroy the boss together, like in the good old days. They understand his strengths and weaknesses, and now his vines will no longer be such a big problem. The main thing is to clearly distribute roles, attack from different sides, and constantly support each other. If you hit your opponent in one spot, his defense won't withstand the pressure, especially if it's the punches of the Boxing King. The class that the system has chosen for this warrior is called a fighter. His class skills are quite simple, but this is enough to punch through a piece of metal with one hand. Once Daeho activates all his abilities, it's best to avoid his punches, because as soon as his fist touches your chin, you will immediately fall asleep for a very long time. The boss was destroyed, the guys received experience points and were satisfied with their work. Speaking of Daeho's skills, it must be said that his technique takes too much strength, and he takes a long time to recover after that. He hadn't used his powers to their fullest potential before, but today he was forced to do so. His friend probably created the perfect conditions for this. They need to fight side by side more often. Lee was also surprised by his partner's skills. He knew that Daeho was strong, but he didn't expect his strength to be comparable to King Kong. It soon became clear that after expending a large amount of energy, one must eat. Otherwise, one's strength will not be restored. They were able to find fruits and vegetables in the jungle and replenish their energy balance. Mushrooms don't have any pronounced flavor, but they are enough to fill the stomach and restore strength. On another floor, they can meet their friends, if they're lucky, of course. There must be a system in this tower, and after one of them passes the first floor, the hall changes. On the first floor, Daeho had to fight in the sewers. He spent a lot of time killing a giant rat boss. And he started to worry about his friends. He wanted everything to be okay with them, and no one to get hurt. He is sure that everything should be fine with the girls, but he is still worried about Kira because she has the least experience. Soon they reached the outer wall. There must be an entrance somewhere here, through which they could get to the next floor. Daeho began to rejoice and rush to find this entrance, but Lee assured him that he had to wait a little longer. If they come in right now, they will be in for an unpleasant surprise. Perhaps this surprise is related to Darren. This girl destroyed a huge number of monsters with her sword. If her grandfather saw this, he would be proud of his granddaughter. She was upset. If she had known what awaited her on this floor, she would not have rushed up. She believed she could stop any monster, but when the third wave of attacks began, she realized she had overestimated her own strength. A huge number of monsters were waiting for her on the third floor. It was impossible to prepare for this. If she had the opportunity to start all over again, she would have taken an extra break on the second floor. Darren hasn't eaten for days, her mana and stamina are low, and she's starting to lose faith in herself. On the other hand, she has no choice. Either she will destroy these monsters or she will also turn into a zombie and become part of them. All this time it seemed to her that her main skills were blocked, but now the situation has changed. She began to demonstrate her talents, which would later make her one of the strongest swordsmen in the world. The problem is that these zombies are constantly reborn. They are not getting smaller. Suddenly, she began to lose consciousness and almost completely fell to the floor. At that moment, the door to this estate opened and she saw a familiar face. Tears appeared in her eyes because she felt my support at the most difficult moment in her life. Hiram stood opposite her and showed with her whole appearance that they would now correct this situation for the better. In reality, things weren't so perfect, because for some reason Hiram lost all her weapons. She asked her friend not to worry about it, and said that she would now take revenge for the fact that someone had offended her friend. Let's go back to the second floor garden. Alex has already been to a safe place and realized that there is no one there. According to the guild's instructions, hunters who have reached the hideout can form teams and act together. A hunter also joined him, but it seems like he's some kind of ghost. Perhaps this is related to the third floor quest, and this woman will turn out to be the boss of the next stage. Alex doesn't understand who she is and why she went with him, and now it's time to figure it out. Elizabeth gave her name and said that she was not a hunter at all. Now it's her turn to ask questions, whether she's looking for someone and wants Alex to help her. He realized that she was not human at all, and decided to kill her in order not to risk his life. He didn't want to tell her about his friends, so murder seemed like the perfect solution to the problem. This was done incredibly quickly and easily, but the system did not report the accrual of experience points. After Alex killed Elizabeth, he saw a happy Kira running towards him. She is the same hunter he will have to work with, and he is pleased that they found each other. He explained that starting from the second floor they would meet their friends, so now everything would be more fun. When they left, it turned out that Elizabeth wasn't dead at all. She doesn't really like swords. She has bad memories of them. Alex turned out to be too hostile towards her, but now this woman is thinking about a completely different hunter named Lee. Meanwhile, this hunter she constantly thinks about has successfully completed another dungeon quest. The monsters on the third floor turned out to be much more difficult than expected, but everything ended successfully. If Lee hadn't guessed to rest before starting, it would have been much harder for them. So thanks to him, they managed to complete this quest. In such large dungeons, speed is always important. Sometimes clearing takes a long time, so a break is needed. Soon, the boys met up with the girls. They had long since finished cleaning this dungeon and were now resting. They have united into an even bigger team and will now act together. Only Kur is missing. Hiram can't understand why Lee keeps wanting to fight the boss instead of avoiding him and going to the upper floor. Only now did the guy explain that by defeating the boss, you can get important artifacts and also earn points. These points can be spent in the store, where they sell various elixirs and legendary weapons, even replicas. If you have enough points, you can buy some amazing items, so it's better not to miss the chance to fight the boss. In battles with strong monsters, the risks are always great, but the rewards are also very valuable and tempting. When they entered this room, they saw a large bed on which a woman was lying. The hunters were surprised because they expected to see some big and scary monster, not a girl with a beautiful face. Looking closer, they couldn't even tell if she was a hunter or an ordinary model from a fashion show in Paris. The most interesting thing started to happen next. This girl called Lee her king and ran to hug him. The reaction of the other team members was quite expected. Everyone was shocked and didn't understand what was happening. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away in Korea, a little girl was introduced to television series. Grandpa fell asleep, so Sora took the opportunity to watch TV, something she was rarely allowed to do before. This is a great example of how television series have a negative impact on the minds of young children. The main character said she would destroy whoever offended her. She was aggressive and preparing to do something terrible. Sora saw it all. She looked at her teddy bear and said that if he misbehaved, she would destroy him too. Back in the dungeon of the tower in Greece, Lee looked at his friends and said that this was all some kind of mistake, and he didn't know this woman. She didn't pay any attention to it at all. She constantly hugged him and said how much weight he had lost recently. It turned out that all his comrades did not understand what language Lee and this unknown person were speaking. Perhaps this is somehow connected with the king's ring, which the Legion constantly wears on its hand. The monsters are constantly paying attention to this ring, and now this woman has started calling it the king, so there's no doubt that it's all connected. She was so happy to see him that she was already preparing to kiss his sweet lips. He looked at her, and at that moment he remembered Kira. After this memory, no kiss was possible anymore. He pushed the woman away from him and said that she was confusing him with someone else, and he was not going to kiss her, at least not yet. He explained that the ring on his hand did not belong to him. He had only recently received it, and was not the real king. It must have been a big mistake, because as soon as he said it, very serious changes began to happen to this girl. Now it's time to prepare for a meeting with the boss of this floor, even though she's a half-beautiful lady. When she turned into a large monster, she immediately began attacking the hunters. Hiram was the fastest to react to the danger, took out her weapon, and began to defend herself. She is an accurate shooter, and today this skill is more necessary than ever, because the survival of the Spectrum team will depend on it. It turned out that the boss of this floor could not be killed with ordinary bullets. On the contrary, this woman became even more aggressive and cruel. She called her assistants and said that they must kill the boy who stole the king's ring. It is still unclear how to defeat the boss, and in such cases it is always better to find a safe place and develop a strategy without risking your life. This woman can call upon additional demons to help, and she is also quite intelligent and able to analyze the situation. Such an opponent will be difficult to attack, and even more difficult to defeat, but if we act as a real team, any problems will be solved. Lee ordered Hiram to take responsibility for the boss's assistants. She must detain them, and ideally destroy them. In any case, the boss doesn't feel very confident in close combat, and her subordinates, on the contrary, are weak in long-range attacks. While the boss is in this position, you cannot constantly attack him mindlessly. You need to come up with another way to achieve victory. Her body is extremely large, which is also another problem, because it will be harder to reach the core. Daejo said he wanted to try using his skills, but he needed help. He needs time to prepare to use his technique, and he asks Darren to buy him some time. This girl also has some interesting tricks and aces up her sleeve, and she is always happy to take advantage of opportunities and help her friends. Meanwhile, Hiram must fully focus on the boss's shadows. They must be reduced immediately. All this time, the boss and his shadows attacked Lee, because he is the main target of the monsters. That is why the entire team must protect him and become a human shield for their captain. Hiram is a gun collector, a profession, as well as her skills related to preservation. All of these skills allow her to release weapons from a controlled space at will, like an inventory on the internet. This skill is usually used to collect or carry a large number of weapons, but Hiram breaks the stereotypes. Among all the collectors in the world, she is the only one who uses this technique during a real battle, which is what makes her special. As soon as the bullets in her gun run out, she immediately changes weapons and starts over, which is how she reached her high level. She cannot be intimidated by ordinary shadow monsters, because a rain of iron balls always comes to her aid. At such moments, you won't envy the monsters, because if Hiram attacks you, you'll be waiting for a huge number of holes in your own body anyway. Meanwhile, Darren had already managed to get her sword out and prepared to cut the boss like a sausage. To do this, she needs to constantly maneuver and dodge dangerous attacks. You should also not forget that the girl needs to buy time, not kill the boss. Although knowing Darren, she can forget about this. She dodges any attacks from this monster and easily closes the distance despite the difference in size. As soon as the girl reaches the necessary distance for a strike, any opponent should prepare for pain. When she struck, she felt sad. It seemed that attacking a human body would be easier than attacking a monster's shell. At a moment like this, it would be great if Daeho finally activated all his power and helped her in this battle. Although this guy has to prepare before the fight, when he's ready, that's when the real fireworks begin. Soon, Lee heard loud screams, turned back and ran to help his friends. It turned out that they wanted to destroy the boss with one blow, but failed, and now they have angered this woman even more. Telling her that the king's ring didn't belong to Lee was a big mistake. He should have his tongue cut out for such actions. Now not only the leader of the spectrum, but all the other hunters must suffer because of his mistakes. Hiram had already forgotten about the boss's shadow and switched her attention to the main goal of this floor. Although these iron balls cannot kill the boss, they at least distract the monster from attacking other team members. You can't defeat such a serious opponent with ordinary attacks. In such cases, you have to strain your brain and come up with something more interesting. Lee again asked his friends to help him. He needed to distract the monster and give him the opportunity to prepare a new blow. Each of them willingly responded to his request and immediately began to restrain this demon with all their might. Lee must hurry. Now every second is worth its weight in gold. You can't risk your friends' lives. The team leader perfectly took advantage of the opponent's lost attention, approached the boss, and prepared to deliver the decisive blow. He had practiced the lunge technique for thousands of hours in a row, and now his attack was like the quintessence of all his suffering. If that doesn't work, then no attack in the world will kill this monster. Recall that Lee's lunge technique is at the maximum level, so he was able to kill the queen and received 500 experience points for it. His friends had never seen him use such an unusual technique. They were surprised and shocked at the same time. After such a powerful attack, the hunter's body was left with almost no energy, and Lee lost consciousness. His mother was completely exhausted, but that wasn't the worst of it, because the system reported that this floor would be closed in 10 minutes. It is unclear where to run. The door to the second floor is closed. There is no other choice but to go up to the next floor. Daejo grabbed his captain and carried him on his back. It's always nice to see such strong male friendship. Hiram couldn't understand why Lee lost consciousness at that exact moment. because immediately after that, everything around him turned into chaos. He is currently the most talented hunter on the team, and they are too dependent on his help. In the future, they should make progress and become more independent. Perhaps this will happen on the fourth floor of the learning tower. Lee woke up in a soft bed. At first, he enjoyed the rest and wanted to sleep all day, and then he remembered that he was in a dungeon. He began to look around and try to figure out which floor he was on and where his friends were. Next to him was a bear they had already met. This bear had promised to meet Lee on the fourth floor, and he did not break his promise. He said that it was like the guest room they give every alpha tester. This bear would accompany Lee on this floor. The fourth floor is a fairly safe place, as is the house on the second floor, and here you can again use your points to buy goods in the store. This bear is very soft and kind, and I looked at it and thought it would be perfect to take it with me to Korea. If I were to give this bear to my daughter, she would have much more fun when her parents go to work. If Sora receives such a gift, she will definitely say that her father is the best in the world. Of course, all that remains is to explain to the bear that he needs to be taken out of this dungeon and taken to another country. They entered the central hall where Lee immediately saw his old acquaintance Alex. Alex was not surprised by this meeting. He knew that Lee had been nearby all this time and was resting after the previous ordeal. Alex said that they used escape tickets, which can be used to exit the dungeon even when there is no door or other exit. Such tickets can be bought in a store. Lee immediately asked the bear to find him this item. This shop is very different from what was on the second floor. Here you can buy not only legendary weapons but also escape tickets. These tickets aren't cheap, but most of their team members have already bought the item and moved on. All members of the Spectrum have already gone to meet the quests available on the fourth floor. Alex also said that Lee's wife had joined him on the second floor and was currently in the process of hunting. The guy was incredibly happy to hear that everything was fine with Kira. He was very worried because they had not been able to meet for a long time. And he doesn't understand at all why no one from the night squad is completing other quests, because thanks to them, you can get a lot of points and buy valuable goods. But he knows that you can buy various artifacts with points, but he thinks that all this makes no sense in this dungeon. Everything they buy with their points in the store cannot be taken outside this learning tower. Besides, the prices for all these items are too high, so there's no point in risking your life for it. Members of the Knights team purchase exit tickets and log out of the system after making significant progress. Lee promised Master Sophia that he would try to destroy the fifth floor boss, even at the risk of his own life, so he had to stay. Lee has no intention of spending his precious points on exit tickets. He wants to buy something else. Also, if Lee can complete the hidden Easter egg quest, he will receive a reward 10 times greater than anything before. This quest could turn his life around, but the bear has yet to meet a person who has been able to complete this task. He also warned that the scripted quests are not real, and if you take them for reality, problems may arise. Soon, our main character found himself in a jungle, but not at all like the jungle on the second floor. He saw a strange child playing with jungle animals. He wanted to approach her like an insect, but this girl started screaming and said that if he took another step, she would kill him. He noticed that this girl could talk to the lizard and even called the animal Albert. They both didn't want to say anything about themselves. It seemed like each of them was hiding something. She asked him to get out of here and not to interfere with her playing, but Lee managed to see that she was injured and decided to help. Lee assured that he was not going to do anything wrong, put down his weapon and said that he wanted to do a good deed. He gave her a plant called lucrum, a medicinal plant that is used to make a compress. It cools and relieves pain. Soon, he helped the girl and assured her that soon her leg would no longer hurt because the lucrum would relieve the inflammation. She thanked him, then told him to get as far away from here as possible, and she also got ready to leave. Lee constantly tried to help this girl. He said that adults always help each other. He looked at her and realized that apart from the lizard, she had no friends in this jungle, so they agreed to get out of here together. The girl didn't exactly say that her name was Eliza, but upon hearing this beautiful name, she also told a little bit about herself. Then he found out that she could talk to animals and that she had no other friends besides them. It's not hard to guess that this girl is a real sorceress or a witch. Seeing her unusual source of mana, he stopped. Eliza ordered him not to move, otherwise she would kill him. She thought he wanted to do something bad to her and Albert, and had no idea that they were being watched all this time. At the last moment, Lee dodged and the arrow that was fired at his head flew past. As soon as Eliza realized that they had fallen into a trap, she immediately became angry and began to use her magic. She grabbed the guy who tried to kill them and made him suffer. Seeing this, Lee was shocked. This little girl is not inferior in strength even to William Taylor, so you have to be more careful with her. Soon, a large black dog attacked them, and at that moment Albert realized he had to intervene and protect his friend. This little lizard only seemed cute and friendly at first glance, but when it senses danger, it is ready to transform into an ancient knight. Eliza believed that all this happened because of her new acquaintance, so Lee began to assure her that he had nothing to do with it. The girl did not want to listen to his words, began to attack him and try to kill him. At this moment, he saw another man again trying to attack Elise. It seems that this girl is not very well liked in this forest. I had to intervene again and save her, even though a minute ago she was trying to kill him. Lee doesn't like it when someone attacks a child in front of him. At such moments, he constantly remembers Sora and looks very angry. Only now did Eliza realize that this guy was not her enemy at all, and he knew nothing about her. They are still in danger, so Lee puts her on his back and starts running away. Albert said he couldn't run that fast, but he had to speed up to keep up with the others. When they broke away from the pursuit, Eliza tried to understand why this unknown Korean guy was helping her. It's obvious to him that when a child is in danger, adults should help. She looked at him carefully and decided to tell him why all these people were trying to kill her. There was a prophecy before. Some crazy oracle told her that she would destroy the entire world. After that, a reward was set for her and people began to hunt for her soul. If Lee goes with her, he will be killed immediately by the mercenaries, so she suggests they go their separate ways before tragedy strikes. This girl also said that the ability to erase memories was something Lee had never heard of before. Only now, after looking at her more closely and analyzing the whole situation, did he realize that she was a witch. He didn't even know that there were other witches besides his own daughter. He tried to calm down and remembered what the bear had told him. In theory, this quest shouldn't be real, so this girl only exists here, and it's not necessary to interfere with this story. On the other hand, mercenaries are constantly pursuing this girl, and she can't turn to anyone for help. Even if Lee pretends that none of this exists, he won't be able to deceive her, because Elise begins to sympathize with him with all her heart. If he follows her, he will become an enemy to the whole world. But Lee still wants to do it, and is even ready to give her the opportunity to train on him. He explained that he sincerely wanted to help this little creature and had no other intentions because he was on her side. The girl decided to believe him and not scare him with her own strength anymore, although even this was too fast a step forward for her. She is already used to constantly hiding and not trusting anyone around her except animals, so her behavior must be treated with understanding. Soon they set off again. First, they had to get out of this forest because everyone around knew about their presence. Albert went on a reconnaissance mission, a good opportunity to rest a bit and wait for new information. A little later, the girl told me that her name was not Eliza because her real name was Elizabeth. The scenario quest was activated. The system informed the player that he must help Elizabeth get out of this forest. Up until this point, no system messages had appeared, so finding out the girl's name was probably a prerequisite for starting the quest. Soon, she told them that they were in the middle of the Me-Time Forest, which was outside the Kingdom of the Estuaries. Then she started talking about mercenaries and bounty hunters, also called paladins. Soon, Lee asked her to take a short break, which would soon be the perfect place to stop. At that moment, Albert returned. The girl started talking to him and asking about the information he had learned during the reconnaissance. There is a village a little further away, but the witch cannot go there because she will be burned at the stake immediately. Lee tried to assure the girl that he could hide her, but she had already taken a similar risk once before and almost said goodbye to life. Lee said that Albert could be dressed up and pretended to be brother and sister. Elizabeth had never heard anything worse. The guy tried to explain that they needed to eat, and at that moment the girl told him that there were many mushrooms here that could help restore energy. A little later, the sun set over the horizon and new visitors appeared in the village near this forest. This guy and his child have never been seen in this area, but it doesn't bother him at all. Lee said that he was a doctor who wanted to find a place to rest. In order to come to this village, he had to persuade Elizabeth for a long and tedious time and tell her his whole plan. His strategy was quite simple. He said he would be her father and tell everyone around that they had gone to Lee to pick flowers. After that, they were attacked by an unknown monster that immediately wounded Elizabeth and almost ate them. By some miracle, they were able to escape from this monster and soon found a village where they decided to stay for the night. He immediately told this story to the man he met in this village. Elizabeth tried to constantly pretend that she was very sick and needed rest. Soon, they arrived at a central hotel and were given a wonderful apartment. Elizabeth had completely forgotten what a regular bed looked like. Soon they would be brought food, and she would be able to fully experience the taste of civilization. She hopes that she does a great job playing the role of a daughter and can become an actress in the future because she doesn't really like the profession of a witch. Lee said that she is indeed very talented, but they will not be playing this role again in the future. The guy was only able to order dinner. He didn't have enough money to get dessert, but even that would be enough. Elizabeth probably hasn't eaten real food in a million years, but even so, she wants to share it with her saviors. After dinner, the boy said he wanted to go and ask how to get out of the forest, and reminded them that they needed to leave this village quickly. Despite the fact that Elizabeth constantly behaves like a spoiled child, it is immediately noticeable that she has a kind heart. Even when she is very hungry, she is still ready to give food to her friend. Not every adult is capable of such behavior, so she is not a child at all. When Lee went downstairs, he saw that everyone around was welcoming the night's guests. They already know that a doctor has arrived here with the child, and they want to talk to him alone. These knights are very similar to the paladins. That is, the bounty hunters that Elizabeth told so much about. Elizabeth is left in her room all alone. Now she is not thinking about what will happen in the future because she is completely focused on the memories of the past. For as long as she can remember, she has always had problems. Mercenaries were constantly hunting her and trying to kill her. Some even tried to cut out her tongue so that she couldn't cast any spells. These people had probably never heard of humanism. She has repeatedly experienced betrayal from her own experience when it seemed that a person could be trusted, but it turned out that this was not the case at all. She was constantly told that no one would help a witch who could destroy the entire world, because it was absurd. And it was hard to remember all these moments of her life. If you look closely, you can see that there are tears in her eyes. Of course, she's thinking about that guy who showed up this morning and tried to protect her from the mercenaries. There are a million questions in her head. She's not sure if she can trust him, and maybe he's just as much of a traitor as everyone else. She remembered how he said he was on her side, and she couldn't forget how he risked his life to save her. After this, it's impossible not to trust even if you cause trouble again. Even if it breaks her heart, she still wants to believe in Lee. At this time, she heard his voice and immediately approached the door. Lee apologized to his daughter and said he was suggesting she take a little walk before bed. The paladins couldn't understand why he was behaving this way, but he continued to talk all this nonsense. At first, the girl thought he was trying to joke with her, but Lee kept talking, getting creepier with every second. He recalled how she tried to run away from home and asked her not to do anything wrong. When Lee said he would enter the room now, Elizabeth had no doubt that this was not a prank at all. After a few seconds, the paladins found themselves in the center of the hotel room, but they didn't find Elizabeth there. Lee guessed that now was the perfect moment to escape. There was no point in being with these bastards anymore. He hit one of them and quickly ran away. But it was only an easy task in theory. It quickly became clear that all exits from the hotel were blocked, and the armed mercenaries were not going to let their victim go. They realized that he was connected to this witch and assured him that the girl must be killed, because she could destroy the entire world. Realizing that he didn't want to talk, the mercenaries decided to show him who was in charge and began to attack. Lee is not used to being afraid of people. He recently fought huge monsters, so the knights don't scare him at all. He's seen all the Jackie Chan movies, so he has no problems with martial arts. The problem is that he is alone, and there are too many mercenaries, and without help, he cannot win. Sometimes they say that a warrior is alone in the field, but in this situation, it is difficult to remain optimistic. Lee realized that now was the perfect moment to use his best skill from his past life. The lunge technique could save him again. A few seconds after activating the lunge technique, a large explosion occurred that destroyed half of the building. Elizabeth, who was trying to escape while sitting on Albert, saw what happened and was shocked. She realized that her new friend was in mortal danger and perhaps he could not survive this explosion. Now she regrets leaving him alone. They should have fought together and ignored the danger. These knights are paladins. They will kill anyone who has anything to do with Elizabeth without hesitation. If they find out that Lee was hiding a witch, they will cut off his head. But she cannot leave her friend in danger. Although she risks her own life, sometimes there are people for whom it is worth taking a risk. So she ordered Albert to turn back. After a few seconds, it saw the silhouette of a man and prepared for battle. But it turned out to be Lee, alive and unharmed. The guy explained that there were too many opponents and he couldn't destroy them all, so he had to get out of here immediately. They ran to Lee and tried to break away from the pursuit of these wolves in human form. Last time, Lee used too much mana. He even had to use the king's ring to stay alive. Now it's only a matter of time before the paladins catch up with him and Elizabeth, so they need to come up with something to save them. He still has various tricks and techniques that he can use, but that's not enough. Soon they were completely surrounded, and now they found themselves in a really difficult situation. Lee tried to intimidate his opponents. He recalled what he had done a few minutes ago and said he was ready to kill them all. The mercenaries acknowledged that his skills were at a high level, but they understood that he could not use this technique indefinitely. If he ran away, it already means he is weak, so the paladin leader wants to personally cut out his tongue. The boss ordered his assistants to go in search of the witch, while he himself remained to fight against Lee. He wants to end this battle quickly because there is no time for unnecessary chatter. Lee assured that he did not want to kill anyone, but his opponent, on the contrary, longed to taste warm blood. Paladins are true knights. They are trained in martial arts from childhood, and they quickly gain experience in battles for territory. Sometimes they can work as mercenaries and do dirty work, which is what this team does. The paladin leader has a large supply of mana. It is not easy to stop him, and it is difficult to even dream of victory. His strikes look like fairly ordinary attacks, but he is able to power up his sword to a high level with his energy. The main thing is not to panic and try to think strategically. You need to come up with a plan and act carefully. Lee has never faced opponents who were stronger than him before, but that doesn't mean there's no way to win. First, you need to understand which mother he strengthened his weapon with. But this is not so easy to do. Soon, Lee found himself in an even worse situation, as his spear was completely destroyed, and now it would be difficult for him to stay alive. He fell and realized that he was one step away from death. He had to invent something, because he had no right to die in this dungeon. Although he doesn't understand that this opponent is almost impossible to defeat, his daughter is waiting for him at home, and he must change her future. He still can't understand the power of this paladin. Lee has been in many battles before, but he has never seen anything like this. To break an opponent's weapon, you need incredible potential, and this cannot be achieved without perfect preparation. It was the first time he had seen an aura that looked like mana. It seemed impossible, so he had an interesting idea. Now all he can do is fight. His spear may be broken, but he has another weapon called his combat experience. The paladin admitted that his opponent has a strong character, because even without weapons, he is ready to continue defending himself. If Lee can use the power of the King's Ring now, he will be close to victory. All he has to do is understand how his opponent's aura works. Once he knows the answer to this question, the job will be done. According to his guesses, this knight had concentrated a large amount of mana in his weapon, just like the guy with the axe in the past. In that battle, he felt that his opponent's weapon was very strong, but now this weapon seemed to be pushing him away with its strength. It is obvious that they both use the same technique, but there are also noticeable differences. Only a little later did he realize that if he used the usual concentration of mana, all the power went to one point, which glowed brighter than anything else. The mana in this sword, on the other hand, is distributed evenly, so the difference is only in the form of the mana. Aura cannot pump weapons with force from within. Unlike mana, he knows this from the books he read in his past life. The power of the aura is contained within the sword in accordance with its size, which means you need to attack correctly and do it at the right time. Our main character has never had any problems with timing. He always knows how to find the right moment to attack. The paladin could not believe that his opponent had mastered an incredible aura so quickly, but in reality, Lee would win the fight through experience. Experience and knowledge can completely turn the tide of a fight, and that's exactly what happened in this situation. An incredibly beautiful picture could be seen in the sky, but unfortunately, we couldn't enjoy this spectacle because we had to fight for our lives. Little Elizabeth tried to escape from the mercenaries even though they had almost captured her. These guys were able to quickly find the witch and surrounded her from different sides. Now it will be twice as difficult for them to escape. She thought that Lee was already dead because if the mercenaries focused on her, they would definitely kill her friend. A little later, she tried to forget all these bad thoughts and reassured herself that Lee was able to find a safe place, just like Albert. These guys are real escape professionals, so you need to worry about them. Her leg wound has almost healed, but because of this escape, the inflammation has started again and now it is difficult for her to even step on her foot. When she saw the horse of the commander of the mercenary detachment, she realized that she could say goodbye to life. If the paladin boss is already here, then there is no chance of rescue. Lee risked his own life to give her a chance to escape, but she didn't take advantage of the opportunity and now finds herself trapped. It turned out that it was Lee who was riding the horse of the paladin squad commander. He had come to save little Elizabeth. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes again, this time tears of joy and happiness. He tried to stop the horse, but he couldn't do it. He hadn't yet mastered this technique. Elizabeth had to intervene to avoid being trampled by this large creature. Lee said that he was able to defeat the paladin general, and now they have the opportunity to escape to a safer place. Elizabeth was very surprised that this guy was able to defeat the leader of the bounty hunters. No one had ever managed to do that before. They shouldn't relax too much because the paladins are still numerous, and they are ready to avenge the general. Lee put the girl on a horse and told her to get out of here immediately, while he went to negotiate with his rivals. He took the paladin general in his arms and ordered the other warriors to stop immediately if they did not want their boss to be beheaded. As soon as they saw their general held hostage, they immediately got scared. These guys weren't ready for such a plot twist. Lee said that if they let him and the girl go, he would let the general live. At first they agreed, but he doesn't want to trust the bounty hunters because he's sure their words mean nothing. Only real bad guys would threaten a little girl with a sharp sword, so there is no trust in them. On the other hand, if he doesn't trust them, they won't be able to come to an agreement and soon the paladins will need reinforcements. He decided to change his plan a little and said that all they had to do was let Elizabeth go. He would stay here until she reached safety, and only then would he release their general. He immediately assured the paladins that they had no right to follow the girl, but this only angered these cruel knights even more. Lee ordered Elizabeth to leave immediately and find a safe place to hide. He assured her that everything would be fine, because he was stronger than all these mercenaries and would definitely protect her from danger. A few seconds later, the girl set off at full speed to look for a new place to spend the night. It was hard for her to say goodbye to her savior, especially considering that he would certainly be in danger after handing over the general to the paladins. It was at this moment that the system reported that the quest according to the scenario was completed. The task was successfully completed. Let's move to another part of the dungeon. There's a meeting going on there right now because no one has been able to find the captain in 3 days. All his friends, as well as Alex, gathered to share all available information and try to find Lee. Now is the perfect time to go searching because they are starting to worry that something bad might have happened. Darren thinks there's no point in worrying. She knows this guy, and similar situations always happen to him. They had almost fully formed a search strategy, and it was at this point that Lee entered the room and asked how they were doing. He probably doesn't even suspect that these young hunters are now trying to find a way to find their captain. He asked why they had gathered here, and in response he heard only silence. After that, they started yelling at him. At first he silently disappears, and now he comes back to them in the same way. This is terrible behavior. 10 minutes ago, the system reported that the quest was completed and the player would now receive a reward. Lee opened his eyes and saw a familiar bear in front of him, so now he was safe and could not worry. He is back in the tower guest room, which means Elizabeth has been saved and his mission has been successfully completed. The bear said that apart from experience points, Lee would not receive anything else for this task, no separate rewards. He only received a plain white piece of paper and had no idea how to use it. Maybe it was some kind of mistake. The broken spear also looks pretty strange. If this whole quest was unreal, then why is the weapon still broken? Maybe all of this really happened in reality, but the reward is somehow terrible. That is, everything seems too confusing. A little later, Lee ordered the bear to open the store and show him the precious items. He wanted to buy himself something valuable. Now it is very important for him to prepare for the boss battle, because that was his primary goal in going into this dungeon. He wants to find many useful elixirs. They should help in difficult moments of battle. A little later, he became interested in other weapons. He realized that it was better to buy himself a new spear than to spend points on an elixir. His spear was broken, so there's no point in fighting the 5th floor boss without a weapon. But now the problem is solved. This spear is called a durog, a legendary weapon from Scandinavian myths, and I had to spend almost all my points on this thing. Kira couldn't understand why the plane acted recklessly. He wouldn't be able to take this weapon with him anyway, so this purchase seemed pointless. He also hasn't heard any information about this boss yet, but he's already sure that a spear will be the perfect weapon to fight him. He was upset that his friends did not support his choice. They believe it is wrong to spend a large number of points on a temporary weapon. They probably don't understand that this is a necessary investment, because he came here for his daughter, not for the rewards. After the tickets appeared in the store, everyone realized that the entrance to the 5th floor was open. Alex can't believe that these fools are really going to go to real hell to die. Even Master Sophia couldn't pass this test. And besides, they didn't buy escape tickets, so there's almost no chance of returning. He couldn't believe they were actually going to go to the 5th floor. But he would have to get used to these crazy boys and girls. They love to feel the risk and feel their hearts leap out of their chests, which is why they decided to become hunters, which is why they are a unified team. Soon they entered the 5th floor, and the training quest to attack the King's Hall began. At first, everyone thought that the statues near the main gate were alive and would start attacking them. But so far, this has not happened. If Sophia is to be believed, these statues should lose interest in them as soon as they walk through the door. Sophia said that this door can be opened with your hands, and no additional keys are needed for this. One person will act as a decoy and approach the door. When the statue starts moving, everyone else will run back and open the door. Kira immediately said that she didn't like the plan, that being a decoy was too dangerous, but Lee assured her that he was ready to take on this role. He is the only one with a chance of survival. He has excellent reflexes and incredible self-confidence. Kira wanted to stop him. It was obvious that she cared about his future, and her feelings for him were growing stronger every day. I had to reassure her that there was no other way out. Lee had a great reaction, so she didn't have to worry. The decision was made and the whole team prepared to act according to the plan. The main thing is not to rush and not lose concentration. As soon as the boy approached and touched the main door, the eyes of the huge statue began to glow red. At this point, Lee began shouting to his team members that it was time to act. It seemed to him that everything was pretty obvious, but for some reason no one moved or was going to open the door. It turned out that the statue was not going to run after him throughout the hall. The task of this knight was to protect the gate, and he didn't care about anything else. Sophia said that all it took was touching the door, and the guards would immediately start attacking. It seems as if they are greeting the king and kneeling before him. At this moment, the team captain again remembered that he had already been called the king, which was hardly a coincidence. In this situation, the king's ring is again involved, and these statues consider him their ruler. 4 people couldn't even open the door a little. It's hard to believe that Sophia did it without help. Lee tried to do it on his own, but as soon as he touched the door, the guards immediately started moving. It seemed to everyone around that these monsters would now start attacking them. But Lee remained calm and was sure that the guards, on the contrary, would help him. That's exactly what happened. They walked up to the door and immediately opened the passage inside. The inner hall was huge. There was almost no light, so it was difficult to see the boss. The first floor boss was the jailer. After that, Lee met the gardener and then fought the real queen of monsters. Now, by all this logic, the king and boss of this tower should sit on the throne. As soon as he sensed that guests had arrived, he immediately directed his black magic into attack. The captain ordered his comrades to avoid any danger as much as possible and to keep a long distance. First, you need to understand the boss's strengths and weaknesses, and only then develop a strategy for victory. It was very difficult for them to defeat the queen, but fighting this demon will be even more difficult. He immediately surrounded them with the power of fire, and then began to recite various spells. This magic is too powerful. The hunters saw for the first time that a creature could attack with spells without stopping. Usually, every sorcerer needs pauses, because any spell takes up a large amount of mana and energy. If he continues at the same pace, he will be impossible to approach, but Lee has a plan. He tried to get closer to the monster and was not going to hide from its attacks. There are several possible explanations for Lee's behavior. He is either very smart and came up with a plan, or he has completely lost his mind. After the boss's attack, the guy showed his friends that he had the situation under control and they didn't need to worry. Usually, all people with a headache behave this way, but this time, everything is fine with Lee. He decided to act this way because he understood the power of his spear. Mentions of this weapon can be heard in Celtic legends and Scandinavian myths. This spear was owned by the knight Dermot, the hero and savior of Piana, and it was this spear that he received from his father, the druid Angus. The red color of the tip means that this spear can neutralize any magic. At one point, Lee even thought his plan wouldn't work, but the boss's magic turned out to be not as dangerous as it seemed. This monster is not very scary. Its main strength is energy, which it can constantly spend and attack without rest. This list is really worthwhile, and now no one doubts that Lee made the right choice. He confidently told his friends that he would now clear the way to the top, and it would not be difficult to follow such leaders even to the ends of the world. You could see different magic around. It was the power of fire, the energy of lightning, and also the power of the earth. Even next to this fire, it's incredibly hot, but Lee somehow makes his way to the epicenter of these events. Kira looked at him and realized that she could not stay away and not help her daughter's father. Her arrows began to attack the boss of this room, but thanks to the protective barrier, he was able to defend himself. The other team members also took decisive action. Hiram took out her favorite rifle and opened full fire. It's also hard to be satisfied with the result. This barrier doesn't let any attacks through, and the boss is even difficult to injure. It's obvious that no barrier can be that strong, and it's also surprising that the boss can both defend and attack at the same time. Alex warned about the power of this creature, but no one could even imagine that this boss was really so powerful. While he is hiding behind the barrier, all that remains is to hide from his dangerous attacks. Lee is trying hard to change the situation for the better, but even his magic spear is not enough to succeed. His actions angered the boss, and he then started throwing huge rocks at him. For a moment, it seemed that the guild captain would be crushed by the spectrum, and only a wet spot would remain of him. He was lucky that all this time Daiho had been preparing to use his technique, and now he could break any stone with one blow. The boss stopped for a while, as if he was gathering strength to deliver an even more powerful blow and show the guests who was in charge. Within a few minutes, everything around was frozen. This magic is incredibly strong. The captain's legs, like his spear, were frozen, but he was not seriously injured. For a moment, it even seemed to him that he was seeing his own adult daughter. But it was just a vision. The boss stopped his attack to gather all his energy and strike with new magic. He acts wisely and prudently. At this moment, Darren called Daeho and said that they still had a chance to win, so they had to take advantage of this chance. Daejo realized that it was time to end this fight. This was a good opportunity to practice hitting a right overhand. He delivered a truly incredibly powerful blow. Even such a strong and durable barrier could not withstand it. The boss on the 5th floor was shocked. Although we can't see his face, he certainly looked surprised. Because he relaxed, the hunters had the opportunity to break through his defenses and win this battle. They began to attack from different directions and get closer to victory. Although just a few minutes ago it seemed impossible. Kira fired several arrows at the boss, and one of them hit him squarely in the face. It seemed like this was the end. The ice around him began to melt, and at that moment the boss screamed in incredible pain. The spell had completely dissipated, but the boss's clothes were still intact, as if he were still alive. Only a little later did it become clear that this boss was not going to die. He was not finished yet and wanted to start the second round. Lee saw that Kira was in danger and immediately ordered her to flee immediately. He could not afford to lose her again. At that moment, when it seemed that the boss wanted to take revenge on her for the arrow he had fired, nothing terrible happened. The girl said that everything is fine with her. She feels great as always, and now she is even comfortable in this boss suit. Maybe it's something like an artifact. She killed the boss and now received his clothes as a token of gratitude. Lee believes that these clothes may be cursed. They can't be 100% sure, so it's better to be careful. It is unclear what happened to the boss. His aura dissipated and the suit passed to Kur. From the very beginning, he used curses as an attack, so most likely he was undead. Perhaps they were very lucky and were able to neutralize the power of his magic, although the boss's robe remained. It seemed that these clothes were part of the boss, because that was where his main strength for powerful attacks came from. If they really destroyed the boss's soul, then they should have completely neutralized all magic. Maybe Lee was wrong from the start and couldn't find the boss Sophia was talking about. At this moment, strange things started happening to the boss's cloak, and it started glowing green again. It started moving on its own, and then the hunters felt as if an earthquake was starting. Lightning could be seen from different directions. Then the floor began to collapse and another guest came to visit them. Probably only now will they meet the real boss of this floor because everything before him was just a warm-up. This huge creature looks like a bird or even a dragon. Its eyes glow red, and its teeth are ready to tear apart any prey. When the Spectrum team finally realized who they would have to fight in this hall, a deathly silence reigned around them. Even the fearless warrior, who in the future would be called the King of Boxing, showed with all his appearance that he did not want to fight for this creature. Even Sophia could not defeat this monster, although she is a true legend of the Greek knightly order. Given her experience, it's hard to even imagine how Team Spectrum is supposed to defeat this opponent. It seems impossible. They began to attack him with various weapons. Kira began to shoot arrows and Hiram attacked with iron bullets. Of course, all this did not harm the monster in any way. On the contrary, it became angry and prepared its tail to attack. A few seconds later, all team members were in mortal danger. They were not ready, did not prepare a strategy, and acted separately from each other. You cannot win with such an approach. Hiram was seriously injured. The blow was very close to her body and she did not have time to defend herself. Daeho said that he would try to attack the monster and distract it for a while. He wanted his friends to use this opportunity to escape. Lee didn't come here to run away, but judging by his opponent, maybe that's not the worst option at all. Sophia and Alex's words were correct. They warned and warned about the danger, but the Spectrum team did not listen to them. Meanwhile, strange things began to happen to the monster. It was surrounded by a strange aura of red flame. Lee was the first to guess what was happening. He told his comrades that the monster was cursed, and anyone who touched it would die immediately. It is this curse that kills Sophia? It is difficult to understand anything from these words, but in the future, everything will fall into place. Right now, Lee can only use the magic of his spear, but that's not enough to stop a curse. The problem is that they can't even get close to the monster, so they don't know how to attack it. This creature foresaw any danger and was created not to know what defeat was. Their situation is really bad. The captain is trying to come up with a plan of action, but in such a situation, it is difficult to even think. They saw that there was another pit ahead and soon another unknown creature began to crawl out of it. It seemed to them that it would be impossible to defeat the two monsters, but they jumped to conclusions too quickly. If there were two monsters, it would be incredible luck because, in reality, there are many more of these creatures. All this seems like an impossible mission, because they are fighting not only against an invincible monster, but also against his formidable army. Not only are there too many of them, but each one can also place a curse on their opponent that will lead to death. There is also nowhere to run, so the only thing left to do is move forward and accept your death with dignity. Darren said that she would attack first and try to stop the monsters. She began to tear these monsters apart with her sword, at which point she imagined herself as the chef of a respectable restaurant. Monsters surrounded her from all sides, but Darren paid no attention to it at all. It seemed as if she had completely fallen into some kind of trance, and it seemed like all of this would be much harder. But in reality, these attacks didn't take much of her strength. If she can continue at the same pace, then we can even dream of victory, although it's still too early to talk about it. The captain could not abandon his team member. He also intervened in the battle and began to help. Now that Hiram and Daeho can't attack, the situation is getting more complicated, and it's getting harder for Darren to keep his distance from the monsters. There are too many of them and only two hunters, and now this numerical advantage is starting to be seriously felt. Kira tried to help and shoot them with her magic arrows, but found that the monsters did not want to come near her. It seemed as if all their attention was focused on a completely different victim. Darren continued to slash at them with her sword, but there were more and more of them with every second. Fighting these giants is very difficult. Today, she even gets tired twice as fast as usual, which leads to problems. At that moment, when it seemed that she would be destroyed, a huge stone fell on several monsters at once. Only Daeho could do something so incredible, but it was obvious that he had used up almost all of his mana to do so. The situation is constantly getting more complicated. This battle does not last long, but it already becomes clear that the hunting team is close to defeat. The strongest member of the team felt that now he too was cursed because he had touched one of the monsters. The guy began to lose strength and soon completely lost consciousness. If he died, it would be a real tragedy. Despite her serious injury, Hiram did not betray her principles and used her weapon to its full potential. As soon as she ran out of ammunition, she would immediately change rifles and start attacking again. Monsters have completely surrounded her from all sides. If she doesn't help now, she will also be cursed. A little later, something very important happened, and we need to focus on this moment. Kira noticed that the monsters didn't attack her at all. She killed them, but they didn't pay attention to her. Probably all this happened because of her clothes, which she received after destroying the sorcerer. This is a very unusual cloak. It absorbs curses and may be the key to victory in clearing this dungeon. After this secret was revealed, Lee immediately realized that this was how they could approach the main boss. He asked Kira to trust him and share this cloak, and if they were lucky, they would be able to get out of here alive. The main thing is that this cloak does not lose its magical properties and helps him get close to the monster. Oddly enough, this clothing is the only chance for salvation. If it protects Lee, then the Spectrum team will be saved. The boy tried to get closer to the monster, but at that moment, the dragon began to attack. The captain understood that he could not waste a single minute, because during this time his friends could die. Now they have to constantly defend themselves from monsters and support each other, but this cannot last forever. Today, Darren has reached a new level of sword mastery. If her grandfather were watching her, he would be proud of his granddaughter. It would be terrible if a day like this, which had helped her make progress, ended in defeat. They killed monsters without stopping, but these demons became more and more numerous. Hiram had long since realized that rifles were no help, so she used a machine gun. Kira immediately warned that this should not be done. The bullets could ricochet and thus infect someone with the curse. The experienced female warrior understood this, but otherwise they would not be able to win, so they would have to take risks. She felt she had no choice but to trust her intuition and create a real hell here. However, Cyrus's prediction worked, and within moments, Hiram was injured even more. After that, she realized that she needed to bring out the heavy artillery and took a grenade out of her pocket. Maybe this will at least stop these demons from hell for a while, because otherwise there's no way to negotiate with them. When the girls ran up to save their friend, they saw that she had already lost consciousness. Now Hiram is on the verge of life and death. On the other hand, in 1 second, she was able to destroy a huge number of these lizards and bought them extra time. Kira asked Darren to help her clear out the remaining monsters, but Darren is also cursed. She had been hiding it for the last few minutes, but now it was obvious that she had turned to the dark side. It should be noted right away that this is not exactly a classic curse, so Darren is not going to kill his friends but will continue to destroy monsters. She is certain that this curse will slowly kill her, so now she has no choice but to give her life for her friends. She saw how Daeho and Hiram lost their last strength and didn't even touch the dragon, so she wants revenge for them. This giant is too dangerous. He turned out to be stronger than expected, but it's never too late to cut off his head. She will most likely die, but that doesn't mean she can't do it for her friends. Despite all these dangers, Darren instantly approached the monster and prepared to deliver the decisive blow. In this difficult moment, you could see real hatred and aggression in her eyes. She would not allow anyone to insult her team. It was difficult to reach the head, so she decided not to risk it and try to cut off the monster's tail. As it turned out, this plan worked. Her blow was lightning fast and powerful, which is how you should fight titans. After the monster was left without a tail, the boss's protective energy attacked the girl. She was left without strength, so she couldn't even defend herself from this attack. But that wasn't necessary anymore. Lee guessed that thanks to Darren, he had the opportunity to attack. He needed this chance, and he got it. Now all that remains is to seize the opportunity and send this boss to hell, because that's where he belongs. This maximum blow turned out to be accurate. Just a minute ago, the monster was in no danger, but now it was left without a tail and was at risk of dying. As soon as he fell to the ground, an explosion of concentrated dark energy sounded around him. All the boss's servants, these ugly and impudent creatures, immediately scattered and turned to ash. This means that they managed to win. But it's not the end yet, because we need to get out of here quickly. Kira prepared to run away and take Lee with her, but at that moment she heard an incomprehensible sound. At first she had no doubt that victory was already guaranteed, but soon she saw before her the terrible claw of death. She couldn't believe her own eyes that a few seconds ago this monster was lying on the ground and not breathing, thinking there was no doubt that he was dead. Now it makes no sense because he is ready to take revenge and destroy everything in his path. Now the dragon has become much stronger than before. All that remains is to run away and hope for luck. After the first attack of the monster, which rose from the dead like a phoenix, our heroes almost lost consciousness. Kira was left all alone. She looked at the dragon and guessed that death awaited her now. Next to her was Lee. The guy lost consciousness and didn't understand what was happening. The monster prepared to strike a decisive blow and show these strangers who was really in charge in this sacred temple. It was at these very seconds that the bowl of water broke. All of this happening thousands of kilometers from the dungeon of the training tower. This happened in Korea. A grandfather, tired of constantly playing with his granddaughter, dropped this cup on the floor. Little Sora was very surprised and scared. She knows that it was her mother's favorite cup. Soon Lee opened his eyes. He saw that the monster wanted to attack him, but something prevented him from doing so. Looking more closely, he realized that Kira had decided to cover him with her own body and give her life for him. He started screaming and trying to understand why she did it, but Kira was calm and reassured her lover. She said that he wouldn't be able to return home, but he had to survive and be with their daughter. At that moment, his heart bled, tears welled up in his eyes, and his soul felt as if it had been pierced through and through. He saw Kira give her life for him, and her head bowed down and her breathing stopped. The system immediately notified the boy that the mission had failed. He was unable to stop the second threat to Sora. Tears won't help. Kira won't be brought back. She died and did it to save Lee. It was her choice. She lived a short but rich and happy life. This girl was always ready to come to the rescue and support her friends. She was not afraid to sacrifice herself and take risks for the sake of a common goal. Even in the most difficult moments of her life, she remained true to her principles, and that is how she will be remembered after her death. The monster is still alive. It looks at Lee and is certainly preparing to strike another blow. Now this guy has no right to die. If he doesn't defeat this titan, Sora will turn into a witch again and destroy the entire world. He tried to attack, but the dragon's power is so powerful that it is impossible to even get close to this monster. He fights as if he's read every martial arts book in the world. And as it turns out, he can even rise from the dead. At this moment, Lee analyzed everything that happened. It seemed to him that he was to blame for all this, because he was the one who suggested coming to this dangerous place. If he had been a little more sensible, if he had a plan, none of this would have happened. In any case, he made an incredible number of promises, and constantly said that he would be able to protect his daughter. Now it seems to him that it has only gotten worse. He always believed that he could change fate, but now he is losing faith in himself. This huge creature knows no pity. It was created to kill and destroy all who come to its temple. In these seconds of his life, Lee didn't try to defend himself at all, because even if he survived, there would be no point in it, because he wouldn't be able to protect his daughter. It seemed as if he had sunk to the bottom of an abyss, with only emptiness and silence around him. Strangely enough, he heard a familiar voice. It seemed that he was alone in this abyss, but this was not entirely true. Raising his eyes and looking more closely, he saw a little girl. Elizabeth, standing before him. She reminded him that now was not the time to die. He had made her a promise and had no right to forget his own words. He promised not to die for any reason, and he promised this to his daughter, and such promises cannot be broken. A few weeks before these events in Korea, little Sora confidently declared that she wanted to go to Greece with her parents. While the father was taking pictures of this serious lady and laughing at her behavior, the mother was trying to explain that she couldn't go with them. They are going there for important work, it is dangerous, and therefore Sora has to stay with her grandfather. The father promised that they would return quickly, nothing bad would happen, and they would continue their happy family life. While in critical condition, he remembered his promise, and strangely enough, this moment was clearly etched in his memory. He remembers what he promised Elizabeth and Sora. He told both girls that he would survive despite all these hardships. Cannot be allowed to become an orphan at such a young age. It will change her soul, and she will turn into the Dark Queen again. This cannot be allowed. Lee suffered in a past life, and is not ready to let his daughter go through all this. We must get out of this dungeon, even if it means giving up all our strength. To begin with, it was decided to use the King's Ring, after which the strength and mana reserve were increased several times. This turned out to be enough to break through the enemy's first defensive barrier. The first attack was immediately successful, although it did not kill the Titan, but now his arm will never work again. Thanks to Elizabeth's memories, Lee also remembered the attack the Paladin used. This boss may be incredibly strong, but that doesn't mean he can repel all possible attacks. His spear has changed color and now mana is strengthening this weapon. The King's Ring will soon expire, so we must hurry. The monster, as well as Lee, attacked each other at the same time, but only one would remain alive after that. In such cases, strength and speed play a decisive role. You need to deliver your powerful blow faster than your opponent, and then the fight will be won. Looking more closely at the monster, Lee saw something very interesting and important. He couldn't believe it, but it was obvious that on this dragon was a small scarf that belonged to Albert. It's unclear how this is connected, but then the guy forgot about it, because there was an impressive explosion of pure energy. After this, the monster had no chance, the training tower was attacked, and the system reported that the quest was officially completed. According to the points tally, it was determined that player Lee made the greatest contribution to the overall victory, although now, he doesn't care much about it. He fell to the ground because he was completely powerless. The King's Ring stopped its action and returned all of its characteristics to their original state. Now this ring should absorb some of his humanity, but that doesn't matter anymore. He understood that he couldn't lose consciousness, but had to get up and return to his daughter. Soon, the unused reward began to activate, and something near his body began to glow brightly. The reward for the scenario quest was the activation of a blank ticket. It was raining somewhere in the forest. In such places, the weather is constantly changing, and those around you quickly get used to it. Little Albert was next to Elizabeth and again watched as the girl looked sadly at the rain. Her behavior made him sad too, but it was always nice to share his sad thoughts with someone. When Lee regained consciousness, he realized he was in his room, although it was unclear how he ended up there. Looking more closely, he saw that he was not alone here at all. He saw a girl and heard a familiar voice. It turned out that Elizabeth was next to him. Now she was no longer a child at all, but, on the contrary, an adult and beautiful woman. She said they would see each other again and was now happy to meet her savior again. At first, she decided to apologize. She couldn't answer all his questions because there was a high probability she would get caught. She asked to give her her hand and promised to reduce the side effects of using the King's Ring. He looked at this strange girl and tried to understand who she really was. The bear said that the quest in the script was not real, which is why he considered Elizabeth a fictional character. Also, her situation is incredibly similar to Sora's, but at the time it seemed like just a coincidence. He doesn't understand whether she's real or not, but Elizabeth is going to explain it. She said that her cloak didn't fit Lee. It turned out that she had given this cloak to someone she wanted to protect. She doesn't know much about his daughter, only that Sora is a witch just like her. They are both cursed by fate, and all they can do is accept it and come to terms with it. It's strange that witches are cursed because only they in this world know how to curse others. Elizabeth felt that the time for conversation was running out, so she decided to give him a warning about the butterfly effect. That's exactly why she came, because Lee must understand that every step he takes changes the future, and it has already changed a lot. He doesn't even realize how many changes have occurred in the world because of his return to the past. Even what cannot be seen now accumulates step by step and turns into a storm in the future. A catastrophe will soon begin that he will not be able to stop alone. During these difficult moments, Lee almost didn't listen to her at all. but instead remembered the last seconds of Cyrus's life. A little later, Elizabeth reassured the boy and said that Kira was actually alive, no matter how strange it sounded. She immediately began explaining that the blank ticket Lee received for the scripted quest didn't work quite as he thought. It is actually a return ticket. It can turn back time for the owner and other members of his guild. At this time, it will return to the moment when they first started attacking, which means you can bring your friends back to life. Elizabeth reminded her not to lose concentration. Kira would only be able to come back to life because she died within the ticket's range. You don't need to constantly count on this ticket, but it's better to throw it away. Lee always has a backup plan, but he doesn't know the future, so it's important to be prepared for the butterfly effect. After that, Elizabeth said goodbye and said that it was time for her to go back, because she could always be caught. Finally, Lee tried to ask her one last question. He wants to understand why she gave him important artifacts. It seemed obvious to her because she was helping this guy for obvious reasons. He stood by her side and protected her from death, so now she owes him. After these words, she immediately disappeared, leaving Lee with many questions, but so far he has not heard the answers to them. The system has notified that global changes are beginning. To continue, you need to log into your personal account. When Lee entered the tower, he wanted to change his specialization, and now he has that opportunity. It turned out that on the contrary, he didn't want to change his specialization at all, but a completely different person. The system reported that this could not be done, even though it was for this that Lee risked his life. Speaking without exaggeration, all of Sora's misfortunes are related to her specialization and class. He hoped that by changing this, he could change everything that happened in the future and avoid the catastrophe that destroyed the world. This cannot be done in such a simple way, so all that remains is to change your own specialization. The problem is that if he does this, he will lose his lunge technique, which is an incredibly effective and powerful skill that may come in handy in the future. Even after 15 years of training, some other skills may not be as effective. Now, before large-scale changes to the system, this is one of his best skills, and this technique can be used several times in a row. The most important thing is that if he abandons the lunge technique, all these years of training will be in vain. On the other hand, by choosing a different profession, he may be able to find another skill, but there is no guarantee that this technique will also be effective. Soon the system announced that you could change your specialization but keep your skills, and that changed everything. It can become a multiplier. At first glance, it is an ordinary specialization that allows all the skills of a warrior to develop. From the very beginning, he bypassed this specialization due to some limitations that seemed very questionable to him. But if he can get the key now, it will completely change the situation for the better. Now everything was decided. He was ready to change his specialization and become a multiplier, but retain all his past skills. After that, he lost consciousness for a few seconds and woke up in a body with a different specialization. Lately, he's been changing his geolocation too often, and it's starting to get annoying. Alex entered his room, heard strange sounds, and realized that Lee had woken up. Now they are at the headquarters of the Knights. Alex found Lee in the tower and brought him out with the other team members. He said that they fought with a monster and were badly injured but managed to survive. From the very beginning, it seemed that the boss of the training tower would be the king, but there was a huge dragon controlled by Albert. If it was really Albert, then it is not entirely clear where the king went. Soon, other team members joined him in the room, with minor injuries but all of them safe. Soon he also saw Kira. Everything was fine with her. She did not hold back her feelings and showed how much she was worried about Lee. He immediately hugged her. Not that they hadn't seen each other in 1,000 years, no matter how happy our hero had been for a very long time. This is not a dream. This is a pleasant reality in which Kira is really alive and almost unharmed. If we recall the past while they were in the tower, Sophia ended up in the hospital because her body became unexpectedly paralyzed. Now her illness has been defeated. She feels much better. She can control her own body again. Lee came to give her the quest reward because it was thanks to her tips that he was able to achieve his goal. It turned out that Sophia did not want to see the reward and only asked to be treated to a delicious dinner. The team members seemed to remember absolutely nothing about the boss fight, probably due to the effect of the blank ticket. Although it's not entirely comfortable to talk to them about what happened, Lee is happy that everything ended well. He decided not to tell them anything because all his goals had been achieved and everything else was of no importance. After a few days, it was time to return home. Although they really enjoyed Greece, it was always better to be at home. Finally, Alex decided to go over and talk to Lee, as the last few days had shown that something was bothering him. He bowed to the Korean guild leader and sincerely thanked him for everything that had happened. Previously, he had no idea that Sophia was cursed, and if Lee hadn't helped, she would have died keeping her secret. Alex is absolutely right. It seems that the training tower is monopolized by the guild. Now a lot has become known about this dungeon, and there will be many who want to try to challenge these towers. This could lead to the start of a war, and if you ask for help from the outside world, you could run into problems. If the guild were to solve this issue on its own, many people would die. So Sophia decided to sacrifice herself so that nothing bad would happen. If Lee ever needs help, he should contact Alex immediately and be sure to get support. Thus, the relationship between these two hunters has completely changed. Now they are not enemies, but friends. After that, they said goodbye and the Spectrum Guild returned to Korea, their trials in Greece officially over. Grandpa was already waiting for them at the airport, bringing little Sora with him in his arms. The girl was incredibly happy to see her parents, just as they were sincerely smiling and happy to meet her. Soon they were at their home and enjoying a well-deserved rest. It was nice to smell familiar smells and enjoy your own bed. Sleeping at home is always much better than sleeping in the best palaces in the world. It seems that Cyrus has no strength at all, which is not surprising because the adventures in the training tower turned out to be a real test for each of them. After returning, no one has any memories of what happened, so they don't know the truth. It's quite interesting that the personal system never allowed you to get anything other than the skills of a particular profession, but now that has changed. This is due to Kira. She did not use her skills before the system update, but at a critical moment this changed. Now Lee is worried about Elizabeth's words. This girl spoke as if she already knew the future, but did not tell about everything she knew. He would like to return to the tower and find her, but after conquering the learning tower, you cannot enter it again. He can only wait and hope for the best. Maybe Elizabeth will return and he will learn something more about the butterfly effect. It will be difficult to prepare for its arrival, especially considering that it could appear at any moment. There are many things he has to think about right now, but the most important thing is his family. These two charming girls are his own world. Sora looked at her parents and said she wanted to be just like them. Lee decided to forget all these difficult thoughts and enjoy the evening surrounded by family. Enough of all these trials for now. A few days later, he heard that a guest had come to their house. At first, Lee started to get nervous, but then he realized that it was his father. He didn't come here to talk, but rather came with a gift. We completely forgot about the kitten that Sora took to her grandfather's house, and now the grandfather has returned the kitten to the little girl. As soon as 40 saw her cat, she was immediately happy and ran to hug it. It turns out that she calls the kitten teacher, a rather strange name, but that's Sora's wish. Grandpa told about everything that happened and how exactly this teacher ended up at their home. Of course, the parents didn't really like this story. From that moment on, Sora and the teacher became close friends, so now they have no choice but to take this kitty into their home. Kira said that she also likes cats, so she wouldn't mind Sora having a friend. The main thing is that their daughter is happy. Everything else loses importance in comparison to this. Lee watched all this and had doubts. He knows that the union of a black cat and a witch could end badly, and that scares him. His bracelet didn't show any reaction to mana, so this cat shouldn't be dangerous. He used to worry that his daughter wouldn't be able to make friends, so now that problem is solved and the teacher can stay at their house. Sora immediately started celebrating and jumping for joy, and Huang looked at his son and said that they needed to talk. This was regarding their recent trip. Huang explained that despite the importance of work, one cannot leave a child alone for a long period of time. Lee may not even notice how his daughter grows up. If he is constantly absent, he will lose the opportunity to be her father. It's clear that he works for her, and she's too young to take her with him, but you always have to find a balance. Although Huang is a wonderful grandfather, he can never replace a real father. If they work a lot, then at least on the weekends they should have fun with their daughter, and also take her with them on vacation. After that, the grandfather said goodbye to his family and returned to his home, and night fell. Lee found out that his daughter was talking to a cat and thought about it before going to bed. Usually children talk to imaginary friends, but knowing who Sora is, there's no doubt that she can really talk to animals. If she was able to create a golem and can change the weather, then talking to animals is a piece of cake for her. At that moment, Kira approached the guy. He thought she was sleeping and therefore was very scared. All this time he tried to talk to the kitten. Kira watched him and started laughing. Through all this hellish learning, he had to talk to a cloak and a little bear, so it's no wonder he talks to a kitten. Finally, before going to bed, he suggested that Kira make the most of his weekend and enjoy a family vacation. It was quickly decided to go for a walk together the next day and take Sora with them. They arrived at a place where you can rent clothes. Sora looked happy. She started choosing different costumes and told her father that she wanted to pick something special for him. It was decided to change their wardrobes together. Lee said he would help the girls make new hairstyles because he had many talents besides hunting monsters. Soon, everyone on the street was shocked to see how beautiful the members of one family were. Kira and her daughter wore traditional Korean women's costumes, and it was nice to look at them. The father also kept up with the girls and dressed in a traditional men's suit and took a beautiful hat. It turned out really quite well, and now they are even called models on the streets of the city. A little later, they saw a cow. Sora had never seen this animal in real life before, so it caught her attention. She tried to copy the cow and stuck her tongue out at it. This little girl needs to work on her manners. After that, the father approached his daughter and offered her something sweet to eat. When he bought her sugar cookies, Sora called him the best father in the world because she had never tasted anything like it. She started begging for another sugar cookie and reminded me of Puss in Boots from the cartoon Shrek. At first, their mother insisted that they should have lunch and only then eat sweets. That would be right. But once Sora turned on her magic, refusing her was almost pointless. Her father didn't stand a chance, so within minutes he brought her a large quantity of sugar cookies. Kira had to intervene to stop this sugar feast. Children should not abuse sweets. It turned out that you can't argue with your mother. Even small children know this. They decided to continue their walk and visit places they had not been to before. They met a man who suggested they take part in a special competition. If they do everything right, they can win any toy, such as the rabbit that Sora likes so much. In order to do this, you have to be very accurate, and of course pay 2,000 for 10 arrows. At first, Lee thought he would easily complete this task, but it turned out that the target was too far away. The task in this competition is really very difficult. Ordinary people who come for entertainment are not able to win the prize. The owner of this competition thought it was easy money for him, but it turned out that Lee knew how to shoot accurately. Only a professional archer or a high-ranking hunter can hit the center of the target on the first attempt. It turned out that instead of Lee, Kira decided to shoot and showed her archery talents 100%. Soon, little Sora received the toy she wanted so badly. This is how little children's dreams come true. Sora also wanted to try to pass this competition, but to do so she would have to return here when she was 7 years old. She said she would shoot as accurately as her mother and would also be able to win many awards. These two girls are truly incredibly similar to each other, although Sora's personality is more like her father's. She won't even have to work hard to learn anything because she's had magic since childhood. The main thing is to teach her to control her powers, because under the influence of emotions, she can lose control of her magic. Despite the fact that her father wants to teach her to control her powers, there is not a single serious wizard around him. Only a few hunters can control magic, which is why sorcerers are called special. Maybe Lee should take it easy on his fatherhood. This girl is only 5 years old, so he has time to raise her. After returning home, Kira went to bed and had a terrible dream. After her house was destroyed, she and her daughter lived with relatives and friends for some time, but could not feel comfortable anywhere. Now it's time to come to your child's father and try to stay with him. Kira was visibly nervous. She hadn't announced her visit and was worried that everything wouldn't go according to plan because she and Lee had a bad breakup. If she didn't do this, there would be no other chance to meet him, so it was decided to take a chance. She came unannounced and feels uncomfortable, but she is Lee's daughter, so he has to accept them and take care of his family. She was curious to see what Lee would think. Now he would see this little lady for the first time, and she hoped he would take them in. She hopes that he is at least a little interested in their fate, and that he will not turn out to be a cruel and heartless man. As soon as Lee opened the door, he immediately said that Kira was too stupid because he wasn't going to let anyone in. He hasn't lost his mind yet to allow a person who destroyed his previous home to live in his house. The guy said he wanted to transfer Sora to the wizard's tower so that she wouldn't grow up to be a real monster. After that, Sehun appeared before her and said that Kira would work for his guild for the rest of her life. And at that moment, the girl woke up and realized that it was all just a terrible dream. Everything seemed so real that it took her a while to calm down. She tried to understand why she had dreamed not only of Lee, but also of that terrible hunter Sehun. But there was no answer. The cat teacher calmly observed all these events. She was calm and retained her playful grace. Let's move to the Magic Tower in the UK and see what's new with William Taylor. After his last visit to Korea, he started having headaches and started feeling worse. He was soon informed that the faults in Greece had almost doubled, but the knights promised to solve this problem. The last time this problem occurred was in Canada, so this is not the first time that the number of faults has increased rapidly. Currently, after the unexpected appearance of the fault in Korea, the number of these events around the world has begun to increase very rapidly. It's hard to understand how all this is connected. The places and times of appearance of these faults are different. But it's still strange. Even natural disasters have causes, but this situation is completely different. And if this continues, hunters around the world will have a very difficult time. William Taylor tried to understand why this was happening, but his head refused to think. He suffered from constant headaches and could not analyze the situation clearly as he had in the past. Soon he grabbed the nearest pencil and started drawing something on the map. It looked like a hurricane that started in Korea. This country has become the epicenter of these events. It all started in the city of Seoul, and he must solve this mystery. Now it's time to see what's happening in the legendary city of New York, in the USA. There you can meet our old friend Elizabeth. She warned that the butterfly effect could lead to serious problems, and that's exactly what happened. She will have to intervene again, but that's not a problem, because progress is much faster than regression. Maybe it's because of Lee. For her part, she's trying to do everything she can to stop him, or at least slow him down, because the warning from the tower has already been received. Using a device in her ear, she spoke to someone and promised to be careful. The woman said that she would cope with all her tasks and that she shouldn't worry about her, after which she took a step forward and jumped down. Let's move to the Republic of Korea, specifically to a high-tech laboratory building. Usually, outsiders are not allowed to enter here, but today, the group leader ordered an exception to the rules. Lee came to test the weapon because there was no better place to do it.